There were too many heaven-devouring ants. Even working together, Zifeng, true immortal Jiaoqi, and Zifen were only able to temporarily create an opening. This opportunity was fleeting. The experts that the three of them had secretly communicated with about this plan had already drawn close and charged out as soon as they attacked. As for the others, they were one step slower, and as a result, the terrifying army of heaven-devouring ants instantly collapsed on them, covering their exit. Cries of despair rang out. With Zifeng, true immortal Jiaoqi, and Zifen leaving, they wouldn't have any hope of escaping. They would only be waiting for death. "Senior, you can't abandon us." Similar cries rang out, but Zifeng and the others acted like they didn't hear. As a result, the army of heaven-devouring ants split in two, one annihilating the experts that had been abandoned, while the rest charged at Zifeng's fleeing group. True immortal Jiaoqi looked back at the group of less than 500 people they had managed to bring out. Amongst them, there weren't even 100 Xian beasts. The Xian beasts possessed large bodies, and so the area they had to defend was many times greater than others. This time, the Xian beasts had taken the worst losses. Over 1,000 of them had come, but less than 100 were coming out. This was the greatest defeat in his life. Furthermore, he still didn't know how he had lost. Bastards! The door's been blocked by them. When Zifeng saw that the exit was blocked by a stone gate, his expression instantly changed. This meant Long Chen and the others had already left, sealing them inside. Attack together. Break this damn door. Seeing the exit sealed, true immortal Jiaoqi's anger soared. His Qilin halberd lit up, and the light of a paragon art pierced forward. Zifeng and Zifen didn't have time to overthink things. They also attacked all out because they couldn't tarry. If the army of heaven-devouring ants behind them caught up, the same story would repeat itself. Boom! The entire world shook. Tiny cracks appeared on the stone gate, but it didn't immediately shatter. Ah! Suddenly cries rang out. The shockwaves of 3 paragon arts forced the surrounding experts back, and some of them were thrown into the army of heaven-devouring ants. In that instant, their original army of 3,000 experts was reduced to just the 3 of them. True immortal Jiaoqi let out a berserk roar. Unable to accept this reality, he attacked the stone door repeatedly. He had entered a crazy state. Finally, the stone door burst apart. At that moment, divine light erupted. An arrow, saber image, and sword chi all rushed out. "It's an ambush," shouted Zifeng. The 3 of them activated their paragon arts to defend. Boom! Mountains crumbled and the earth collapsed. The light of paragon arts pierced out in every direction. Zifeng, true immortal Jiaoqi, and Zifen all coughed up blood and were blown backward. Their hasty defense put them at a disadvantage. As for Long Chen, Nian, and Yu Shaoqian, they were standing in the exit. Clearly, they had been lying in wait. The berserk power unleashed by the 6 of them caused the tomb to collapse. Heavenly Tao energy from the outside world was surging into it, wreaking havoc. A giant whirlpool appeared, sucking the contents of the minor world inside. "The minor world is crumbling. If we get sucked in, we'll die." Yu Shaoqian was appalled at this sight and hastily sent a message to the other 2. The 3 of them hastily retreated. It was quite literally the apocalypse. This minor world's life had come to an end, and everything sucked into the whirlpool was turned to dust. The heaven-devouring ants were crushed without the slightest ability to resist. As for Zifeng, true immortal Jiaoqi, and Zifen, their expressions changed. Even for experts as powerful as them, being drawn into this whirlpool would spell certain death. Zifen had it the worst because his power was the weakest. He had also been blown back the furthest from the ambush. He was the closest to the whirlpool, and as he tried to fly away, an arm and leg were torn off his body. With a furious roar, Zifen raised his staff. Divine light enveloped his body, and he suddenly sped away. The rest of him managed to escape, but his arm and leg were sucked up by the whirlpool. Zifen had a horrified expression. Fortunately, what had been devoured wasn't the arm holding his staff, or he'd have died. Wrapped up in the light of his staff, he sped to the front. Just as he was about to escape the pull of the whirlpool, a 5-colored arrow shot toward his heart. Nian. Jiaoqi let out a furious howl. At this critical moment, Nian was actually sneak attacking him. Bang! However, on its flight toward him, the arrow was smashed apart by a halberd. True Immortal Jiaoqi had saved him. He had no other choice. If in a 3 against 3, they were unable to suppress them, then without Jiaoqi, they would be in danger in a 2 against 3. The minor world gradually faded away, and the whirlpool shrank. In the end, the only thing left to show that it had ever existed was a bottomless hole. Longchen, face your death. Just as Longchen was preparing to ignite more of his green dragon essence blood to fight true Immortal Jiaoqi, a roar came from the distance. It's Hualain. Xiaoqian, you have to leave. Longchen's expression changed. He saw countless experts charging over from every direction. It was unknown if they had been summoned by Zifeng or drawn over by the fluctuations. In any case, more and more experts were coming, with many top experts amongst them. Yu Xiaoqian nodded. Forming hand seals, she began to chant a scripture. Runes appeared around her, and her body rapidly faded. You think you can run? Keep dreaming. Zifeng saw this and immediately attacked, but he was blocked by Nian's arrow. Before anyone else could do anything, Yu Xiaoqian vanished. She had used some secret technique to flee. So, should we continue? Nian looked at Longchen. Continue for what? That Huoyun's a tough opponent, and I also sense Xia Luo's aura. Let's end things here. We've already gotten our money's worth, said Longchen. All right then. Nian nodded. Count yourselves lucky. Next time, your daddy Mo won't let you off so easily. Nian took out a strange object that looked like the tip of a spear. It was pitch black and just over 3 meters tall. This strange object suddenly opened. It drew Longchen and Nian inside. Then, runes activated around it and it prepared to leave. Die. Zifeng, true Immortal Jiaoqi, and Jiaoqi launched powerful attacks that slammed into it. However, it simply flew away without the slightest damage. Children, your daddy Mo's earth-splitting divine shuttle can't be damaged by even nether passage experts. As for you few? Hee, don't even bother trying. Nian's mocking voice rang out. That strange earth-splitting divine shuttle sped away. Nian actually flew it straight toward Hualain. Hence, Hualain took out his spear and activated its divine power, smashing it at the earth-splitting divine shuttle. As a result, Hualain was sent flying, hacking up blood. As for the earth-splitting divine shuttle, it was sent flipping through the air by the impact. Damn, that Hualain's pretty strong. Even without a paragon art, his attack is on the level of a nether passage expert. Exclaimed Nian. Stop playing around. Let's hurry up and leave, said Longchen irritably. It's fine, I once used the earth-splitting divine shuttle to play around with a dozen nether passage experts. Even after several hours, they weren't able to break its defenses. It's a supreme treasure, said Nian confidently. This earth-splitting divine shuttle was something he had found in an ancient tomb. It was a funerary object for a supreme expert. It was thanks to it that after all his years of grave robbing, no one had managed to kill him. This was another reason why Nian could be so arrogant as to sweep through the western Shen region with no one able to stop him. The problem isn't its defenses. All I know is if this continues, I'll puke, shouted Longchen. Flipping through the air like this made him nauseous. After all, Longchen wasn't Nian. After his years of experience, Nian was already used to it, but Longchen wasn't. All right, we'll go. Nian was a bit unwilling, but seeing more and more experts coming, he knew that killing Zifeng and the others wasn't possible. They could only leave. The earth-splitting divine shuttle transformed into a shooting star that streaked over the horizon, vanishing from people's sight. That speed made them feel despair. Bastards! Hualain let out an angry roar. He wanted to block them, but the earth-splitting divine shuttle was too fast. Zifeng, true Immortal Jiaoqi, and Jiaoqi's expressions were ugly. This time, they had suffered a double loss. The 3,000 experts that they had gathered had been annihilated. Amongst them were quite a few of their trusted subordinates. Now experts from all the various powers had rushed over here. They looked at the three of them and their wretched appearances. Their gazes made the three of them want to start killing. "What happened?" demanded a dark-faced Xie Luo to Gui Yen. "You aren't qualified to ask me. If you want answers, ask someone else." "I'm not your subordinate," snorted Gui Can. He turned and left just like that. Clearly, Gui Can was too infuriated to answer Xie Luo's questions. More importantly, he didn't have the face to give the real answer. True Immortal Jiaoqi also left on his own without looking at anyone. Only Difeng's expression was calm. He was spiritually telling Hua Laiyun and Xie Luo what had happened. Long Chen and Nian are both sinister and crafty. If we want to kill them, we'll probably need to make things more difficult for them. We can't be careless. Otherwise, if after all of us were mobilized and they still survive, we'll be humiliated, said Hua Laiyun after hearing the story. "Let's go. We should set up around the Yin-Yang Valley. It won't be long before it opens. Long Chen and Nian will definitely appear there. We'll make sure that they can never leave the Yin-Yang world," said Difeng. Hua Laiyun nodded. Xie Luo also expressed his consent. There really wasn't much time left. It was time for a decisive clash. Astral winds raged through the air. A group of dozens of experts was currently fighting all out on a mountain range. There were 9 experts of the righteous path on one side, while there were over 20 experts on the other side. Those experts came from the corrupt path, ancient races, and ancient family alliance. The number difference meant that the righteous experts were at an immense disadvantage. They were clearly suppressed, and it seemed victory was about to be decided by the other side. The righteous path has only broken off relations with the ancient family alliance, but we aren't enemies yet. "Are you trying to start a war?" shouted the righteous path's leader, a woman whose sword danced, blocking the attacks of 7 people. She was extremely powerful. "Can you fools even count as part of the righteous path? You're still following that dictator Chu Jianing. Can you even represent the righteous path?" The one speaking was a disciple who was also wearing the robes of the righteous path. Chu Jianing no longer cares about the righteous path. She's just selfishly protecting Long Chen, and the righteous path is now united against her. "We will overthrow her dictatorship and rebuild the righteous path. Only you stubborn fools would still stand by her side. All that awaits you is death." "What bullshit? You're clearly lying. Even now, you're working together with the ancient races, ancient family alliance, and the Shen beasts. Worst of all, you've even joined hands with your mortal enemy, the corrupt path, to slaughter your comrades. Now you dare to spout such lies." Cursed the woman. The thing that infuriated her the most was the betrayal of these 3 people from the righteous path. At first, they had acted very amicably with them, while secretly sending an alert for others to come, resulting in them being surrounded. The 3 of them had then turned against them, killing 2 of them and injuring 1. To be sold out by fellow people from the righteous path was the most unacceptable kind of betrayal. Now hearing one of them even spout such nonsense, her fury soared. "You don't understand the times. The Martial Heaven Alliance can only start to grow once we overthrow Chu Jianing. Since you don't want to listen, you can just die," sneered that righteous expert. Suddenly, a strange figure shot through the air. It was incredibly fast, so fast that they didn't see it clearly. However, it made all of them jump. It was so fast that they almost felt like they hadn't seen it. After a brief moment of confusion, they continued fighting. The 9 righteous experts were fighting for their lives, but the immense power disparity made it difficult for them to do anything. Suddenly, that strange object shot back. 2 figures walked out of it. 10 years I wandered with my bow, my arrows causing heaven and earth to shake. The 9 heavens, 10 lands, and all the universe will revolve around me. Only I, Nian, its senior apprentice brother Long Chen, were saved. Just as Nian began his chant, the 9 righteous experts became ecstatic. They finally saw who the 2 of them were. "Fuck, this is too embarrassing." Nian almost coughed up blood. He had actually been ignored. Seeing Nian and Long Chen, the experts attacking the righteous disciples were terrified. Without any hesitation, they fled. 1,000 arrows. Nian raised his hand. With a pull of his fingers, thousands of rays of light shot out. Where those arrows flew, death followed. Those experts didn't even have a chance to make a sound before being killed. Those people had mostly been rank 9 Celestials, with 2 Empyreans. As those 2 Empyreans hadn't even begun awakening their manifestations, Nian didn't require any effort to kill them. Longchen had to admit that Nian's move was very clean and efficient. It definitely made him appear handsome. The experts were dumbfounded. Those enemies had almost cost them their lives, but they were swatted like flies in front of Nian. That kind of combat power was shocking to them. Many thanks for saving our lives, senior apprentice brother Longchen. The leader hastily cupped her fists toward Longchen. Hey, have you gotten things wrong? I was the one who saved you, while he didn't do anything. Can you not ignore me? Demanded Nian. I'm sorry. You are? The woman looked at Nian with embarrassment. She actually didn't know Nian and thought that he was one of Longchen's subordinates. Nian almost fainted. This fellow is Nian. He dominated the Western Xian region, and in the grave, the world of archaeology, he's a famous pioneer everyone knows, said Longchen, standing up for his brother. Otherwise, Nian really might get into a fit. Sorry, truly sorry. I come from the Eastern Xian region and only know senior apprentice brother Longchen. My apologies, said the woman. This woman might come from the Eastern Xian region, but the Eastern Xian region was huge, and Longchen didn't know her. He asked, Are you still exploring or are you trying to gather? Senior apprentice brother, Lingshan has already sent out the call to gather. We were rushing over to the gathering place. We have no choice but to gather, because not only have traitors appeared amongst our midst, but they've allied with the corrupt path, ancient races, ancient family alliance, Xian beasts, and Pill Valley. They'll gradually consume us bit by bit if we don't gather. We have to unite to get vengeance for our fallen brothers and sisters. The woman looked at the corpses on the ground with fury. Betrayal was always the most painful thing. Longchen nodded. Lingshan was finally picking up her burden. As her summons spread, all the forces of the righteous path were gathering. That was the only way to prevent being picked off bit by bit. Her message also had a warning. Traitors had appeared amidst the righteous path, so everyone had to be even more careful. This woman was a good example. Because of those 3 people that had snuck into their group, some of her people had died. Senior apprentice brother Longchen, are you coming with us? The Martial Heaven Alliance needs you, asked a seemingly very young maiden shyly. Her face was filled with worship and excitement. Little you, don't cause a fuss. Senior apprentice brother Longchen is. The leader hushed her. They belonged to the same sect, so they were rather close. I have more important things to do, so I won't be going with you. However, remember that as long as the Martial Heaven Alliance needs me, I definitely won't retreat, said Longchen, smiling at the maiden. These words boosted their morale. It was like Longchen was a god, and a simple promise from him could fill them with passion. This was the charisma that only Longchen possessed. The leader nodded. Time was pressing, so she bade farewell to Longchen and Nian, leaving to go to the gathering place. How is it that such pretty girls welcome you and completely ignore me? Said Nian bitterly. It's only because they come from the same place as me. All the Western Xian region's experts go crazy when they see you, comforted Longchen. Isn't that because they want to kill me? That's the only reason they go crazy. Nian did a facepalm. Stop talking nonsense. Let's talk seriously. Right now you're a loner, but that's not a long-term plan. If you want to restore the glory of the Mo family and wrestle back the position of leader of the ancient family alliance, you need more power. The Martial Heaven Alliance isn't a bad choice. Nian was currently alone. He looked like he was doing very well, but in the end he was alone. When it came to fighting a guerrilla war with the ancient family alliance, he was doing well, but it was almost impossible for him to win back the position that should be his on his own. The Martial Heaven Alliance? I don't think so. Don't try to con me. Those fellows spend all day scheming against each other in an attempt to get an advantage over their allies. What can I rely on people like them? Snorted Nian. He was also very disappointed with the righteous path. I also thought the same. But a windstorm blows away the weeds, and fire burns impurities. The Martial Heaven Alliance's current tribulation will cut it to its core, but it will also slice away the toxic areas. By slicing off the toxic areas, the remaining flesh will be healthier, and it can regrow stronger than ever. I don't believe it. You say you're slicing off the toxic areas, but now at least half the Martial Heaven Alliance has been sliced away. How is it supposed to heal? Do you think Pill Valley will give them that time? Chu Jianying might have once created a legend, but that's in the past. If this was Chu Jianying's era, as long as she raised her hand, who in the righteous path would have dared to go against her? It's just a shame that Chu Jianying wasn't ambitious enough. She wasn't vicious enough. At that time, she should have taken control of the righteous path's minds and made it so none of the sects would dare to betray her. However, she was merciful, allowing the righteous path to be infected by the vermin of Pill Valley. To restore the Martial Heaven Alliance to its previous state? I'm not trying to give you a blow, but it's almost impossible. Nian shook his head. He clearly knew a great deal of the Martial Heaven Alliance's history and hit the nail on the head. A force like the Martial Heaven Alliance will naturally start to decline at its peak, but it will also start to grow at its bottom. This is a common pattern. You're being too pessimistic. Didn't you see those disciples just now? Their cultivation bases weren't high, but they still refused to surrender. If they had just switched sides, they could have escaped death, but they would have rather died than submit. Doesn't that show that there is hope? This is how you see the true core of a cultivator. There will naturally be some idiots in a crowd. That's unavoidable. But trust me, the current Martial Heaven Alliance is recovering. If you show them some kindness now, it will bring you endless benefits. I don't think that it's appealing. After all, I have my earth-splitting divine shuttle. I can go wherever I want. I don't want to be held back, said Nian. All right, then I'll just mention that the Martial Heaven Alliance's leader of our generation is called Lingshan. She's a peerless beauty, and she's still single. Really? All right, I accept. Nian's eyes immediately lit up. What the fuck? What happened to your integrity? Demanded Longchen disdainfully. All his words of advice were unable to sway him, but he immediately changed tunes upon hearing that Lingshan was a peerless beauty. Integrity? I buried that the first day I went grave robbing, said Nian indifferently. However, are you sure you haven't seduced her already? If you're scamming me, don't worry about that. I'm only working together with her. She's very much like Senior Chu Jianying. She's strong-minded, determined, and resolute, perfect traits for a leader. It's just that she has yet to fully release her sharpness, so she still needs some assistance right now. If you were to provide her some real help at this time, then once you attempt to take over the ancient family alliance, she will definitely stand on your side. Don't tell me that you don't want to see the Mo family return to its former glory and take back what's yours. Nian was conflicted. To tell you the truth, I don't really care about restoring some former glory or leading the ancient family alliance. I feel just roaming around the world by myself would be more pleasing. If someone provokes me, I'll just go do some archaeology at their ancestral tomb. If I can't beat them, I'll use the earth-splitting divine shuttle. Isn't such a life happy? Your family's old man will definitely curse you to death if you do that, saying you aren't a filial son. Longchen shook his head. That isn't the biggest problem. They don't have the ability, but they force me to do it. Fine, I'll listen to you. Longchen, I have something serious to discuss with you. You have to answer me seriously. Ask away. Tell me, if I try to pick up Lingshan, what are my odds of success? That was something serious to discuss? Longchen was rolling his eyes inside. Didn't you see your future in the ancient tomb? You're only accompanied by Lu Zongying, so what do you think? The future changes as soon as someone learns it. It will no longer follow its old track. In other words, as soon as I saw that future, it opened up the possibility of other women. Longchen looked at Nian's wretched smile and sighed. To tell the truth, perhaps the two of you are suited for each other. Nian was delighted to hear that. Really? In terms of your face. Lingshan has an oval face that's slightly narrow, while your face is wide enough to make up for that weakness. Fuck, this is slander. My face isn't that big. This is called a healthy, well-rounded face, understand? Raged Nian. Look at your own gaunt cheeks. You're clearly lacking good luck and blessings. As for the feeling when you touch it, there's nothing to say. Alright. I won't talk about such useless things with you. If you want to pick up Lingshan, then I think that's an excellent idea. If you succeed, you'll be a badass. If you fail, you'll still have roped in an ally. Lingshan needs your help, so use the Earth-splitting divine shuttle to scout around. Based on Hua Laiyun and Difeng's characters, they will definitely send out an army of experts to block our people. That would be your best time to show off. Before even seeing her, you'll give her a huge gift. That will be the foundation for seducing her and make everything else easier. You know, the way you're putting it, it sounds like I'm only doing this to pick up girls. To tell the truth, I'm only doing this because of you. If it weren't for you needing me, I wouldn't do such a thing, said Nian bashfully. Scram, you shameless fellow. Nian really did scram. Getting into the Earth-splitting divine shuttle, he flew away. Longchen had pulled in another powerful helper for Lingshan. This cooperation would be immensely beneficial to both Lingshan and Nian. As for Nian trying to pick up Lingshan, Longchen could only pray for him. Lingshan was deathly loyal to Chu Jianying and had to place all her effort on the Martial Heaven Alliance. How could she have time to discuss romance? Hopefully she wouldn't give Nian too bad of a blow. Once Nian left, Longchen also set off. He went in the opposite direction. This way they could cover more ground. On the way, Longchen sensed quite a few battles. As expected, the other side had sent out orders to intercept the Martial Heaven Alliance's people, wanting to eliminate some of them before they gathered. Seeing this, Longchen wasn't merciful. Those experts trying to stop the Martial Heaven Alliance's people were slain without even having a chance to run. Those disciples were delighted upon seeing Longchen come to save them. He stuck with some of them who were in small groups until he found another group for them to join. The more there were, the safer they would be. After a week, Longchen didn't even know how many battles he had ended. He had finally reached the gathering place. There were hundreds of thousands of righteous experts here, and a clamor erupted when he arrived. The Martial Heaven Alliance was the continent's largest alliance. That statement was not even slightly false. Even after its interior had been splintered, so many elites were still loyal to the Martial Heaven Alliance. Its power was even greater than he had expected. "Ha, Longchen, you're late." Nian immediately walked out and greeted him. He had been a bit faster, as he had the Earth-splitting divine shuttle and was an expert in long-distance attacks. Longchen. Lingshan and Chu Yao also walked over. Behind Lingshan was a group of experts. Although they hid their auras, powerful fluctuations came from them, indicating that they were supreme experts. They should all have started awakening their manifestations. Some of them looked at Longchen very politely, bowing, while some looked at him coldly, not offering any greetings. Longchen didn't mind those people being aloof. People who liked to act badass had to have some ability. Those without the ability to be badasses were dumbasses, and such people never lived long in this world. Longchen returned the greetings to those who greeted him, which gratified them. After all, he was the one who blazed with the greatest light in the Martial Heaven Alliance. His light even eclipsed Lingshan's. "Do you see those little fellows looking down on you? Even I want to beat them to death. They previously provoked me on purpose." Nian sent a message to Longchen. In Nian's mind, others could act badass, but anyone who tried to act more badass than him would be going too far. Longchen smiled. "Ignore the children. Treat it as giving Lingshan face. She is trying to establish her reputation, and if you tear her down, you won't have any chance." "Yup, I'm different from them. I'm acting low-key. I'm just waiting for a chance to show off my power and give them a silent slap in the face," chortled Nian. Longchen was now surrounded by a group of righteous experts. The younger ones in particular had zealous expressions. They were his worshippers. People had a rebellious side, and they didn't want to accept their fates. As for Longchen, he was the greatest defier of fate in the martial heaven continent, a little fellow who had walked out of some corner of the eastern wastelands with nothing, had forcibly climbed to his current height, fighting against the very heavenly Daos, refusing to submit to any pressure. Now he was surrounded by enemies but still refused to submit. His name alone was to strike fear into the hearts of countless experts. Longchen was a legend, a godlike existence in their eyes. Seeing so many people staring at Longchen like this, even Nian was getting a bit jealous. He had never enjoyed such limelight. Was it really because his face was a bit fat? Nian touched his own cheeks, his confidence shaken. Everyone else can scatter. We have important things to discuss. A large man began shooing away those people. Those people's cultivation bases were average and insufficient to enter the core of this army. Hearing this order, they could only helplessly scatter. Longchen frowned slightly. He glanced at Lingshan, and she gave him a helpless look. She was unable to control these people. These people were powerful Empyreans and were naturally prideful. They might have listened to her summons, but even that wasn't easy. To make them submissive? Impossible. Of course, they also couldn't be all lumped together. The majority of these experts were still very conscientious. Some powerful people liked to be low-key. Those people hadn't come over to the core. They just needed to listen to Lingshan's arrangements and didn't want to suggest anything themselves. This was their trust and respect for Lingshan. The others scattered, leaving Longchen, Nian, Chu Yao, and Lingshan with a group of hundreds of powerful experts. Those people sat on the ground and quietly looked at Lingshan. Quite a few of the men clearly had adoration and admiration when they looked at Lingshan. For her to have reached her current level had truly been difficult. It was the result of her own efforts. Chu Yao sat beside Longchen, holding his arm to indicate her own position. Many people had tried to express their own feelings toward her, and if it hadn't been for Lingshan, Chu Yao would have already left. Seeing Chu Yao hold Longchen's arm so intimately immediately made flames of fury appear in quite a few people's eyes. Try as they might, they couldn't hide that. Longchen acted like he didn't see that foolishness. To Lingshan, he asked, "What's the current situation?" "Do you think you're qualified to question Miss Lingshan?" shouted someone immediately. Lingshan's expression changed. She hadn't expected these people to be foolish to this extent. Even if they didn't want to live, they didn't need to do this. "Do you want it or should I?" Longchen looked at Nian. Nian shook his head. "I'm not in a good mood. I might not be able to control myself." Longchen nodded. He vanished, reappearing in front of the person who had provoked him. He immediately slapped him. Before that person could understand what was happening, he was sent flying. Longchen's voice resounded through the air. "I specialize in treating the disobedient. Who else needs treatment?" That expert's face caved in. Without a sound, he fainted. This was Longchen being merciful. If he had added just a bit of force, he'd have died. Chaos followed his actions. Quite a few people were about to shout furiously at Longchen. However, their voices were cut short when Nian pulled back his bowstring. Things were silent. They were shocked to find that every single one of them was locked onto by Nian's aura. With a single thought, he could kill them all. An intense sensation of death filled their hearts. Although they had heard of Nian's name, all they knew was the name of the Western wretch. He spent all day robbing tombs, so he was looked down on. However, as soon as Nian pulled back his bowstring, they felt all their lives be held in his grasp. Their expressions wildly shifted. Only now did they learn just how great the difference between them and Nian was. What are you planning on doing? Why fight amongst ourselves?" asked one person, shaking. The ruckus over here drew the other experts who had distanced themselves from this smaller group. They rushed over to see what was happening. "Hee, I knew these fools would be put in their place." One of the experts in that crowd smiled faintly, as if he had long since expected this. "Exactly. Those arrogant fellows just kept looking down on everyone else. I ignored them, and they viewed it as me being afraid of them. I said that as soon as Longchen arrived, it would be up to their luck if these fellows would even survive." Having such idiots removed from the group is good for unity. Otherwise, having them act like big shots all the time would hurt morale. Quite a few people were smiling. Those people who had barged their way into being one of the core members didn't realize the situation. Lingshan was the future alliance head, and she had called them all over. Who did they think they were? Why should they be allowed to participate in matters only for the higher-ups? Some of the smart people had long since realized that these fellows would cause trouble. Lingshan's foundation wasn't stable yet. Once she had steadied herself, they would be the first group to be put in their place. However, others had been even more far-seeing. They had bet that as long as Longchen arrived, their days of looking down on others would come to an end. And they had won their bet. It was just that even they hadn't expected Emonian's power. Hundreds of experts were locked onto by his power, and all those experts were top Empyreans. That was why they were so arrogant. With a simple move, Nian suppressed everyone. So many lives were in his hands now. Life and death could be decided by just a thought from him. Now they saw his terrifying power. Longchen icily looked at the stunned and enraged experts. He smiled disdainfully. What? Did you think that because you were powerful Empyreans that you could get an advantage? Did you think that the current Martial Heaven Alliance needs you desperately? How laughable. With your little power, people like Zifeng, true Immortal Jiaoqi, or Xie Luo could annihilate all of you in a single attack. Who are you to act like big shots here? The Martial Heaven Alliance wouldn't be lacking if you were gone, so if you don't like it, then scram. The current Martial Heaven Alliance is undergoing a nirvanic rebirth. Standing on the right side today is your luck because you'll get to continue living. If you want to leave, I guarantee your ending will be very miserable. You're not the ones helping out the Martial Heaven Alliance, it's the Martial Heaven Alliance helping you. Standing on the side of the Martial Heaven Alliance is your smartest choice, so don't start getting any wild ideas. Lingshan is Alliance Head Chu Jianying's personal disciple. The Alliance Head has already entrusted the Martial Heaven Alliance to her, so you also need to trust her instead of acting like some council of judgment. Do you feel wronged being forced to leave your lives in other people's hands? Then tell me, do you know how many losses the righteous path suffered when Senior Chu Jianying shook the whole world as she led the righteous path against the corrupt path? How many times did she brush against death? Do you know? Do you know why she did it? I'll tell you, it was to protect the righteous path. She abandoned her own love and life for the Martial Heaven Alliance. For all of you, if it weren't for Senior Chu Jianying's generation spilling their blood, would you have your current cultivation environment? Would the righteous path be as powerful as it is now? Now that their days are comfortable, some people have forgotten what their ancestors sacrificed, how they died. For some temporary profit, they're willing to collude with the corrupt path to kill their comrades. Such people aren't even fit to be called humans. As for you all, while you haven't betrayed the righteous path, you're acting arrogant, like you're some amazing fellows above others. That's already negatively affecting the righteous path's unity. Longchen will put it bluntly. If you become more well-behaved, there will be a place for you in the Martial Heaven Alliance, but if you feel like staying here is a waste of your talent, then you can walk away. You have legs. You can go wherever. But no matter what you choose, it's not a path you can return from. Longchen's voice resounded through the air powerfully. It contained great confidence and charisma. His logic was plain and simple. Everyone, if you want to leave, I won't keep you. But if you stay, you will be my brothers and sisters of the Martial Heaven Alliance. I, Lingshan, come from humble origins, and this is a great responsibility, so I cannot guarantee much. However, I can promise that when the Martial Heaven Alliance is in danger, I will be standing at the very front. Even if I have to spill my last drop of blood, I will protect the inheritance left by my master. Lingshan also stood up and made a speech. This promise moved all the disciples. This was a public oath. Senior Apprentice Sister Lingshan will trust you, will follow you to death. Whether it's heaven or hell will follow you. Quite a few experts stood and shouted. Those were experts that she had saved. Without her, they would have long since died. She had followed Longchen's suggestion and had begun gathering the righteous path and gathering their hearts. Some of the results were already showing. People's hearts were complicated to the point that they couldn't be understood. However, sometimes they were simple to the point that a single action, a single gaze could make them willing to risk their own lives for someone else. Those arrogant experts were caught in an awkward position. They had thought that relying on their great power as elite Empyreans, they should have the authority to enter the core of this group. That was the only way for them to gain more authority in the future. However, their arrogance had been shattered by Long Chen's slap and Nian's bow. In front of the two of them, they weren't qualified to be arrogant. They were stunned by Long Chen and Nian's martial power, and then Lingshan had even come out, making a promise as the leader. For the first time, this great army of the Martial Heaven Alliance possessed some cohesiveness. We were foolish and offended, Senior Apprentice Sister Lingshan. Please give us your punishment. You can curse us, beat us, but please don't expel us from the Martial Heaven Alliance. We want to work for the Martial Heaven Alliance, said one of those disciples. He actually knelt on one knee toward her. That was a standard etiquette for a subordinate. That alone showed the change in his attitude. Following that person, the other disciples also apologized for their previous conduct. One of them announced, "Please don't expel us. Otherwise, once I get back, my dad will definitely beat me to death." He was one of the generals following the alliance head, and I want to be the same as him. I will follow you to death. These hundreds of experts had submitted. Long Chen and Nian exchanged a smile. This was the power of the carrot and the stick. It was a well-tried method and had resolved this problem. In truth, any power would have similar issues, especially when there were more people. That was only natural. However, these Thorns had been people with a certain amount of power. One benefit of these Thorns was that their heads were simple. Once their beliefs were solidified, it would be difficult to shake them. Their loyalty shouldn't be much of a problem. These hundreds of experts apologized, while Lingshan graciously accepted. This matter ended like that. Lingshan glanced at Long Chen gratefully. This was all thanks to Long Chen. Otherwise, considering how she had no experience with leadership, handling these people would not have been so easy. All right, everyone, pay attention. Long Chen's voice once more rang out. During the next 3 days, everyone should arrive. Although we're reaching the last few stragglers, we're still going to wait these 3 days. During these 3 days, everyone is to monitor each other. This gathering place will be sealed off. People can enter, but not leave. Why? Long Chen continued, because there are so many people here, there are definitely a few spies. 3 days from now, the Dragonblood Legion's #1 soul expert, Meng Qi, will come. She'll clean up any spies. To guarantee that none of them escape to sell out our information, I hope everyone can keep a close eye on each other. Although it's a bit hurtful, this is something that relates to hundreds of thousands of lives. Brothers, sisters, you must be on guard at all times. Immediately, the wariness of these disciples shot up. Quite a few people's expressions changed. Big Sister Meng Qi is coming? Chu Yao was delighted. Foolish girl, this is a con to scare away the traitors. No matter how amazing Meng Qi is, she can't soul-search hundreds of thousands of people without a few months' time, laughed Long Chen. You're evil. Chu Yao also laughed. Long Chen was once more conning people. However, he had been so serious that it had looked real. All right, let's ignore them for now. We should go take a look at the Yin-Yang Valley, said Lingshan. The Yin-Yang Valley was the core of the Yin-Yang world. It was a place where Yin and Yang converged, a mystical space where life and death merged. The Yin-Yang world was actually 2 worlds, one Yin world and one Yang world. The Yang world was the side of life, and it was the world they were currently exploring. As for the Yin world, it was a world of death. Death energy filled that place. Any life that entered would be destroyed. There were legends that some terrifying existences resided within the Yin world. But legends were just legends. There was no concrete proof. The energy of the Yin world and the Yang world was in a constant cycle. Every now and then, there would be a yin-yang tide. When the life energy and death energy merged, when the stars aligned, the Tao of life and death would be displayed for all to see. That was greatly beneficial to anyone wanting to comprehend life and death in an attempt to advance to the Nether Passage realm in the future. It would lay a certain foundation for that moment, greatly improving their odds of advancing. So the Yin-Yang Valley was the greatest treasure in the Yin-Yang world for these disciples. Mist was starting to gather in the air, hiding the sun. That meant that Yin-Yang Valley's tide was about to begin. This was a very important moment. If Yi Lingshan hadn't gathered the disciples of the Martial Heaven Alliance, then once they hurried off to the Yin-Yang Valley one by one, they would be sending themselves to their deaths. "You're the leader. I want to hear what you're thinking," said Long Chen. Yi Lingshan said, "I was planning on going to the Yin-Yang Valley today. After all, with so many people, we aren't as fast, and to maintain our peak combat state, it will take a day to arrive." That had been her plan, but Long Chen actually wanted them to wait 3 days. That didn't fit into her plan, but she understood Long Chen well. Each of his moves had some motive. "Actually, I completely support Miss Lingshan's idea." Nian immediately nodded. "Why?" asked Long Chen. "There's no why. Miss Lingshan's choices are all fully supported by me. As long as she gave me the order, I would work like a dog to accomplish it," said Nian solemnly. Long Chen almost shivered. Wasn't this too direct? He could feel goosebumps rising. Yi Lingshan blushed slightly. These words weren't subtle at all. However, she was experienced with the way of the world, and she quickly returned to normal. "Long Chen, I want to hear your thoughts. Actually, your idea is entirely correct. If we go now while the other side has yet to finish their preparations, we can definitely cause some damage. However, if we go that quickly, my Dragonblood Legion won't arrive on time. They're only just coming out of seclusion now and will need 3 days to enter their peak condition. Furthermore, the Yin-Yang tide doesn't have any use at the start. It's only 3 days later when the Yin and Yang energy combines, when the golden sand appears, right? It's also called the golden tide. That's the real critical moment. As long as we arrive before the golden tide, we will still be baptized by the life and death tide, increasing our comprehension. That's enough. As for the rest of the tide, they can do whatever they want with it," said Long Chen indifferently. The Yin-Yang tide as a whole wasn't important. What was important was the golden tide. It lasted for merely an incense stick's worth of time. Just getting there for that one stick's worth of time was enough. It was impossible to comprehend the mysteries of life and death during other times. More importantly, Long Chen didn't even care about the golden tide. He had the Yin-Yang Immortal grass's root that was growing in the primal chaos space. It had taken root. There was also Lu Rian who had absorbed the Yin-Yang Immortal grass's primal chaos divine elixir and received the Yin-Yang Immortal grass's comprehension of life and death. The Yin-Yang Immortal grass had said that Lu Rian would be able to control life and death energy in the future and would be able to easily help others comprehend life and death. So Long Chen's target wasn't the golden tide. It was Hua Lian, Difeng, True Immortal Jiaoqi, Xie Luo, Gui Kan, Ming, as well as those Fate Princes and the Bloodkill Hall's divine emissaries. This time, he was planning something big. This explanation put Yi Lingshan at ease. She had even been a bit worried that Long Chen wasn't planning on having the Dragonblood Legion participate in this battle. But it was just as her master had said. While Long Chen didn't easily trust others, once he did, he would go all out to help you. "Thank you. It's my duty, nothing else." Ignoring everything else, just based on the care that the Alliance head has given me, as well as her relationship with the old man, this matter is one of my top priorities. Other than that, many of my enemies are there. It just so happens I can settle things with them as well, said Long Chen. Then what are we doing now? We're just waiting? Demanded Nian. If we're bored, we can have a few people suddenly disappear. That will make those spies afraid and they might just scram. Nian, you shouldn't be low-key during this time. If you're bored, you can teach those arrogant disciples a lesson. What we did just now is only temporary. It won't be long before they start getting arrogant. You might want to spar with them and let them know what respect is. I don't mind if you're a bit cruel. Otherwise, when they see someone like Xie Luo, they might just charge forward idiotically and get themselves killed. That would affect morale, said Long Chen. An army of hundreds of thousands of people was very difficult to oversee. The Dragonblood Legion was originally only 360 people. There had been some tough Thorns then too, but after being put in their place by Long Chen, they had become obedient. Later on, over 10,000 people had joined at once. That was a mass of Thorns as well, but they were also put in their place by the old members. In the cultivation world, power was worshipped. Whoever's fist was harder was right. Lingshan was the future alliance head, and for her to do these things wasn't too suitable. Long Chen was already bored of doing such a thing, so Nian was the best option for handling this. Now he had an opportunity to openly show off in front of everyone. He wouldn't miss it. After receiving this order, Nian directly patted his chest to Lingshan, indicating that she shouldn't be too worried about it. He would handle it. Watching Nian leave, Lingshan turned to Long Chen. "What's wrong with this fellow? He seems off?" He was pursuing her, but Nian's method of doing so was truly a bit off. He didn't know how to be subtle at all. Nian was currently acting like he would be working together with Lingshan forever in the future, but Lingshan knew that he was the main descendant of the Mo family and couldn't possibly become her subordinate. However, he was acting devoted and faithful to her, dumbfounding her. She actually didn't connect it to a romantic sentiment. Is he off? Maybe a bit, but it's understandable. Someone who spends all day robbing tombs probably doesn't spend much time interacting with the living. "You'll get used to it," said Long Chen. During the next few days, the experts of the Martial Heaven Alliance learned what a true expert was. When Nian exchanged pointers with them, he wouldn't even use a weapon. He would fight against divine items with his bare hands. He would defeat his opponents with one move. Even the strongest expert amongst them only lasted 3 moves. Quite a few people had challenged him at the start, but after Nian beat 100 people in a row, the rest submitted. Nian was truly powerful. He had immense combat experience and was able to predict other people's moves easily. He quickly won quite a few worshippers for himself. Seeing him with women holding his arm, asking him to talk about some of his battles and tips, Long Chen felt that Nian was about to float into the heavens. Even his smile was getting wretched. "He's quite the flirt." Chu Yao leaned in and whispered into Long Chen's ear. "Well, anyone would be pleased to have others say such flattering words to them," said Long Chen. "We know. But at least you hide it well and don't act as obvious as Nian." Chu Yao covered her mouth and laughed. Long Chen's smile stiffened. After righteously covering for Nian, he had ended up drawing himself in, as if he was the same as Nian. In the end, Nian's bragging was the real thing. He had the experience of being attacked by Nether Passage experts. His experience in that regard was even greater than Long Chen's. However, when Nian described his battles with those experts, when he described how dangerous it was, how he had counterattacked, how he had averted disaster, he never mentioned the Earth-splitting divine shuttle. It was as if he had relied on his entire power to escape from an encirclement of Nether Passage experts. The experts listening were infatuated with his words and were feeling even greater worship for him. He wasn't just a braggart, but he was someone with the power and experience to back it up. Long Chen estimated that if he allowed Nian to continue like this, then in less than 3 days, Lingshan's position might get rocky. However, Nian wasn't just bragging. He was answering some very important questions about how to protect oneself in battle and defeat enemies. This was greatly benefiting the experts listening. As Nian bragged, Long Chen asked how Lu Ruyan was. Chu Yao answered that she would quickly finish refining the primal chaos divine elixir in her body. Then she would be completely transformed. According to Lu Ruyan, her undying willow race was a remnant of an immortal clan. However, her branch had declined and been unable to continue their inheritance, resulting in all their disciples being scattered throughout every corner of the universe, hoping that they could one day continue their inheritance. This transformation was extremely important to her. Her power would rise to a completely new level. Time passed bit by bit. Just as there were only 6 hours left, someone hurriedly ran over. Reporting to senior apprentice brother Long Chen, 4 hours ago, some brother saw disciples wearing the robes of the heaven-splitting battle sect rushing in the direction of the Yin Yang Valley. That brother didn't think it was anything important and just mentioned it to me casually, but I felt like there was something odd about this, so I immediately came to report it. What's going on? Lingshan was startled. The heaven-splitting battle sect's disciples had refused to come with them? Had they charged their way to the Yin-Yang Valley on their own? No, something's definitely wrong. Some in the army. We're leaving immediately. I'm going to see what's going on. Longchen rushed off. There were 8,000 disciples of the heaven-splitting battle sect being led by Chang Hao and Bao Buping. Those disciples were all gloomy and filled with killing intent. Their eyes were about to spit flames. Buping, should we tell Long Chen about what happened? Asked Chang Hao. Long Chen's with Yi Lingshan right now. If we told him, Yi Lingshan would also be drawn over. The old man already said that even if we have to die, we can't owe a favor to the Martial Heaven Alliance. We can't make him lose face. Bao Buping shook his head. Although they also knew that telling Long Chen was the best option, they knew that the old man would curse them to death if they did so. They understood his temper. The old man and Chu Jianying were both fiery-tempered, and neither was willing to lower their head to the other. As disciples of the heaven-splitting battle sect, they had to uphold the old man's honor. That's true. Fuck, who cares? When did men become so afraid of dying? Last time, we made them pay a painful price. This time, they set up a trap for us, but the heaven-splitting battle sect's motto is that no matter if you have a trap or not, if you provoke us, we'll kill you. Even if we have to fight to the death, we'll get our money's worth. Anyone who doesn't kill at least 100 experts in the same realm isn't a real man, shouted Chang Hao. Fuck, if I don't kill 1,000 of them, I won't be able to rest in peace. I'll make those bastards pay. Others shouted along. A giant black curtain appeared ahead of them. The void rumbled around it. The area inside was the Yin-Yang Valley, where the Yin-Yang world's life and death energy intertwined. It was like two worlds constantly merging, and even the heavens were torn apart by this clash. There were hundreds of thousands of experts gathered in front of the Yin-Yang Valley. These people belonged to the righteous path, corrupt path, ancient family alliance, ancient races, Shen beasts, and other powers. They were currently standing in front of the valley because before the most optimal time, it was very difficult to comprehend anything from this place. They were waiting. Other than those experts, there was another group numbering in the tens of thousands who were standing not that far from them. These experts were those maintaining neutrality. Amongst them were people like Chu Fengxue and Chu Xian. The ones standing in the neutral camp were those belonging to ancient families with profound foundations. They didn't need to rely on others, so as long as they didn't interfere in the fighting, no one else wanted to provoke them. Standing amongst the neutral faction was a man who was very curious. Behind him was a faint whirlpool. Inside that whirlpool, there was a giant dice slowly spinning. When the 8,000 experts of the heaven-splitting battle sect arrived, everyone tensed up. These people really went too far. They actually cut off the heads of the heaven-splitting battle sect's disciples to draw these simple-minded fellows over. Despicable. That strange man shook his head. In front of that coalition army were over 100 heads suspended in the air. The neutral faction's experts all felt great disgust at such conduct. Some were even angry. The heaven-splitting battle sect's disciples were fiery and direct, but they were also the bravest warriors. Other than being difficult to get along with due to their fiery natures, they didn't have any bad reputations. In the large battles against the corrupt path, they had spilled their blood for the righteous path. They had made immense contributions. If this coalition army didn't have people from the righteous path, then perhaps they wouldn't mind as much. However, now there were people from the righteous path standing there, standing together with the corrupt path, ignoring those heads. That made their hearts turn cold. What a bunch of simple-minded fools. They actually fell for something so simple. Within the coalition army, Zifeng smiled contemptuously. Zifeng, Hualian, True Immortal Jiaoqi, Xia Luo Gui Ken Ming Jie, and all the other peak heavenly geniuses had gathered. Of course, if they didn't fall for it, they wouldn't be disciples of the heaven-splitting battle sect, said a scholarly man. He wore a Taoist band on his forehead and looked to possess the air of immortal Tao. This man was one of the 4 Fate Princes from Heavenly Fate Island. However, now the 4 Fate Princes had become 3. One of them, Luo Tianji, had been eliminated by Long Chen. News that Luo Tianji had been slain by Long Chen had spread through Heavenly Fate Island's secret methods. They were all on guard against Long Chen. However, with the army gathered, the 3 of them could no longer continue hiding. There was also no need to keep hiding. They would also show their power in the upcoming battle, displaying their own brilliance. After killing a few of the heaven-splitting battle sect's disciples, they used their heads to draw the others over. This plan had even included the subtle connection between the heaven-splitting battle sect and the Martial Heaven Alliance. Long Chen plans to come during the Golden Tide and launch a sneak attack. Even if he can't win, he'll disturb us so that no one can comprehend anything. His plan is pretty good, but does he think it'll go as planned? Sneered another one of the Fate Princes. They had seen through Long Chen's intentions. Kill! Bao Buping, Chang Hao, and the other disciples immediately felt their heads buzzing upon seeing those suspended heads. Their fury overwhelmed their intelligence, and they charged forward. The heaven-splitting battle sect's disciples were very united and viewed each other as family. Now they were completely enraged, thinking of only executing vengeance for their brothers. As for their own lives, they no longer cared. The only thing in their hearts was overflowing hatred. Attack together. Annihilate these idiots. Zifeng waved his hand, and countless experts charged out from their side. The heaven-splitting battle sect's disciples immediately launched a furious barrage of attacks. They seemed insane, and the tens of thousands of experts that went to block them were forced back. So even brainless pigs have some ability. I'll cut down those too. One of the Fate Princes flew over, going straight at Chang Hao. Chang Hao furiously slashed his broadsword down. However, that Fate Prince didn't even look at Chang Hao's attack. Chang Hao had no idea how the Fate Prince did it, but his body seemed to easily sway past his attack while his ruler pierced towards Chang Hao's chest. Chang Hao coughed up blood and was knocked back. Chang Hao! Seeing Chang Hao being injured, Bao Buping let out a furious roar. He charged at that Fate Prince. Killing you will only take one move. The Fate Prince sneered. Bao Buping's 3 consecutive attacks all missed. It was like he was perfectly cooperating with his opponent. After the 3rd attack, the Fate Prince's ruler pierced toward Bao Buping's head from a bizarre angle. This move was calculated perfectly, striking Bao Buping at the worst time. This Fate Prince's fighting style shocked all the experts present. Even the likes of Hualayan, Zifeng, true Immortal Jiaoqi, and Zifeng were startled. This kind of attack style was practically supernatural. After all, both Bao Buping and Chang Hao were extremely powerful. They might even qualify to be ranked amongst Zifeng and the others. However, he was defeated so easily by that Fate Prince. This was their first time seeing the power of Heavenly Fate Island's disciples, and they were shocked. This was the goal that Fate Prince had been going for. Buping! Chang Hao couldn't save him. He let out a furious roar. The ruler shook and stopped right in front of Bao Buping's head. A hand had caught it. Long Chen! Bao Buping let out a delighted cry. Wrapped in black robes, his icy eyes looked like the gaze of a death god. Long Chen had come. Killing you will only take one move. That Fate Prince's ruler was pushed back by Long Chen, and the hilt smashed into his chest. As soon as that Fate Prince saw Long Chen, his mind went blank. He suddenly found that his golden fate lines had been severed, indicating that he was about to die. He couldn't recover from the shock of seeing that. Immersed in the terror of death, he died without being able to resist at all. Without even making a sound, he exploded into bloody mist. If he wasn't one of the Fate Princes, perhaps he would have had the slightest chance of surviving. After all, experts all instinctively avoided mortal danger. But because he was a Fate Prince, upon reading that he was about to die, his mind went blank, and he was killed just like that. Long Chen killed a Fate Prince that had just shown off his power, causing a clamor. The power that the Fate Prince had just shown had been stunning enough. Who would have thought that he would be unable to receive even a single attack from Long Chen? Even as he died, the sound of Long Chen saying, "Killing you will only take one move," still hung in the air. Long Chen waved his hand, and those heads suspended in the air were pulled away by him. "Long Chen, they humiliated our brothers. We have to kill them." Bao Buping and Chang Hao shouted in unison, filled with hatred. "Don't worry, anyone who dares to kill my brothers will be paying me back 1,000 times, said Long Chen. Long Chen was also infuriated, but for him, when his fury reached a certain level, he actually calmed down. "Everyone from the heaven-splitting battle sect, retreat." Long Chen waved his hand. The first thing was to make the heaven-splitting battle sect's disciples retreat. "You think you can retreat just like that? Hand over your life." True Immortal Jiaoqi suddenly charged over. Immediately activating his Qilin power, his halberd blazed with light. Following True Immortal Jiaoqi, the other experts also attacked. They knew that once they captured Long Chen, this fight would end before it started. This was also one of their goals in drawing over Bao Buping and the others. The only thing not part of their plans was that one of the Fate Princes would be slain by Long Chen in just one attack. They hadn't expected the Fate Princes to be so powerful. He had essentially toyed with Bao Buping, but he had been eliminated by Long Chen. However, even with that surprise, Long Chen had been drawn over here alone. This trap could count as a success. With everyone working together, they could instantly subdue Long Chen. 10 years I wandered with my bow, my arrows causing heaven and earth to shake. The 9 heavens, the 10 lands, and all the universe will revolve around me. Only I, Nian, will rise to glory. A very melodious and poser chant rang out. Arrows rained down like meteors. The experts that had just charged forward were forced back in a panic by the hail of arrows. Nian is present. Who dares to fight? Nian raised his bow, standing in the sky with the blazing sun behind him. The sun made it so that they could see his figure, but not his face, making him look grand and mysterious. Zifeng snorted and immediately shot off at him. The other experts continued toward Long Chen. He was their main target. Sword light slashed down like a rainbow river. Lingshan had also arrived. After that, the ground burst apart as wooden stakes shot out, looking like pythons leaping into the sky. They formed a giant net around the experts. Chu Yao was standing atop a wooden tower. As soon as Long Chen had learned what was going on with the heaven-splitting battle sect's disciples, he had sent a message back to Chu Yao and the others, telling them that the battle was about to start and that the top experts had to immediately rush over, or it would be too late. Long Chen was already exchanging blows with True Immortal Jiaoqi, Nian was mortal enemies with Zifeng, while the other experts unleashed powerful attacks, blowing apart Chu Yao's net. Lingshan, you won't be getting away today. Guican went after Lingshan first. However, he had just moved when a sword blocked his path. "It's you!" Seeing that slender and veiled figure, Guican immediately recognized Yu Shaoqian. "Last time, I couldn't kill you, but I'll end things today." Yu Shaoqian unleashed a tempest of attacks at Guican. "Killing a demon woman is fine as well. We're no longer in the ancient tomb, so let's see if you still have the ability to fight me." Guican sneered. Last time, he had been suppressed, so now he could restore his prestige. As soon as Yu Shaoqian blocked Guican, one of the other corrupt kings, Ming, clashed with Lingshan. With multiple peak experts exchanging blows, the entire world was filled with explosive divine might. Each of their actions caused the world to shake. 12 divine flame guards, capture that woman. Hua Lian and Xia Luo were being blocked by Chu Yao's endless wooden stakes. Not wanting to waste any more time, Hua Lian suddenly shouted. From the giant army, 12 experts of the Flame Divine Palace flew out. They charged at Chu Yao, wielding flame blades. These experts were surrounded by flame runes emitting shocking fluctuations. The Flame Divine Palace is actually this powerful? Based on their auras, they're only slightly weaker than Hua Lian and the others. How terrifying! The Flame Divine Palace was actually hiding so many experts. Within the neutral camp, quite a few people felt a chill. A huge battle was about to erupt. The 12 of them attacked together, and their movements were well coordinated. 12 flame blades slashed onto the same spot, creating a giant hole in Chu Yao's net. Chu Yao was startled. These 12 people were very powerful, but most terrifying of all, their minds seemed to be linked. They fought in perfect unison. Their power could support each other and allow them to unleash explosive might. With the net destroyed, Xie Luo and Hua Laiyun charged out of Chu Yao's blockade to Long Chen's battlefield. Chu Yao was about to stop them when those 12 experts blocked her. You should pay more attention to yourself. The 12 of them were speaking in unison as well, to the point that it was like just one person was speaking. 12 flame blades unleashed an attack at the same time. However, this time they came from 12 different angles. Boom! A giant willow tree appeared behind Chu Yao, and endless leaves shot down, destroying those attacks. The undying willow had appeared. Willow branches shot out, as heavy as mountains but as quick as lightning. What? The appearance of this undying willow caught everyone off guard. In that one instant of shock, the willow branches pierced through the bodies of the 12 experts. The 12 of them let out a simultaneous roar. A rune appeared on each of their foreheads, and light linked them together. They attempted to incinerate the branches piercing their bodies. These branches contained horrifying wood and death energy. If they didn't remove them quickly, they would die. Other experts would already be dead, but the 12 of them trained in a strange cultivation technique, allowing them to link their flame energy to increase their power. Chu Yao poured her own spiritual yuan into Lu Ruyan's body, wanting to assist her in slaying those 12 powerful experts. However, just at that moment, a sword appeared out of midair. The blade was clear like water, stabbing toward the back of her heart. One of the divine emissaries. Chu Yao's heart shook. She had completely locked down this area with her aura, but someone was still able to sneak up on her. Only an assassin on that level could do such a thing. She instinctively moved forward, dodging the divine emissary's sword. However, just at that moment, her expression changed. She shouted, "Ruyan, he's after you." The instant that she dodged the sword, the killing intent contained in the sword vanished. Only then did she realize that she had fallen for a trap. How could an expert on the level of the Bloodkill Hall's divine emissaries possibly expose their killing intent? It was clearly intentional to create an opening. The place where she was at was the core of the undying willow. If attacked in such a place, Lu Ruyan would receive a heavy injury. Divine light sparkled on the sword. If it stabbed into the undying willow's main trunk, then even an undying willow wouldn't be able to endure it. Chu Yao, watch out. There's another one. Long Chen's voice suddenly rang out. Chu Yao was startled and suddenly unleashed a wave of flower petals that filled the sky. She quickly noticed a figure within those endless flower petals. Boom! 18 wooden dragons charged through that figure. However, that figure was empty. It was like it was an illusion. Just at this moment, Lu Ruyan's branches formed a giant cage. She directly trapped the Bloodkill Hall's divine emissary that had attacked her. Unfortunately, being forced to defend, she had no choice but to give up on killing the 12 experts of the Divine Flame Palace. She began a furious barrage of attacks toward the assassin. Her branches formed a cage that kept him locked in. No matter how he attacked, he was unable to break through their blockade. Lu Ruyan was no longer the old Lu Ruyan. She had obtained life and death energy. Her branches were tougher, sharper, and so powerful that even divine items wouldn't be able to easily break them. She had millions of branches, and they shrank, their power condensing. That assassin couldn't go anywhere. Be careful. I'm going to eliminate this assassin, but it'll take some time. Lu Ruyan sent a message to Chu Yao. She had bound the divine emissary, but he was still a powerful existence. He wouldn't just obediently wait for his death. Within the cage of willow branches, that assassin was using his divine item to hack at the cage. The branches were constantly being blown apart, but then they regrew. This was also a kind of attrition. Everyone, destroy those branches. Zifeng saw things weren't going as planned. Following his shout, the experts finally recovered from their shock. They began launching attacks. The Martial Heaven Alliance's army is here. Don't get arrogant, you shameful bastards. Just at this moment, the Martial Heaven Alliance's army of over 600,000 people charged. Their voices shook the sky. The leader is already fighting with her life on the line. Brothers, what are you waiting for? Kill the traitors, execute the schemers, slay the devils. The time to leave your names in history is here. The two armies clashed, starting a furious battle. No one could have any wishful thinking, and they were fighting with the determination of facing death. Those afraid of death hadn't answered Lingshan's call. Seeing this scale, for the first time, Long Chen felt confidence in the righteous path. There were still many hot-blooded people. The experts attacking Lu Rian were forced to switch to defending against this giant army. They had no personal ties to some assassin of the Bloodkill Hall and were looking out for themselves. When both armies were added together, there were over 1 million people. In the first clash, blood dyed the earth, blood dyed the sky, and blood dyed people's eyes. Battle was bitter, painful, and frantic. As the people beside you fell one by one, lives were disappearing from the world forever. It brought endless pain and hatred. The only way to vent this anger and hatred was to kill your enemies. The corrupt path was the righteous path's mortal enemy. The enmity between the two sides had been built up over countless years. It could only be washed away with more blood. As for those people that were originally maintaining neutrality but were now standing on the side of the corrupt path, they had also become enemies. The most unacceptable thing was that amongst those people were their former comrades of the righteous path. This was an unforgivable betrayal. Those without any courage had acted like they hadn't received Lingshan's summons. They had slipped away, choosing the coward's path. Those who were left might be young or still had youth's vigor left in them. In either case, they still had hot blood flowing through their veins. They knew that without the Martial Heaven Alliance, the righteous path would not be able to survive. They would end up becoming slaves. Not all the righteous path's experts were cowards and fond of scheming against each other. There were also many courageous heroes unafraid of death. Just as these armies of hundreds of thousands started their clash, the void rumbled. Roars rang out from the outer regions, and an endless tide of experts charged over from every direction. Fools of the righteous path, did you really think we only had these few people? You'll all be dying here today. Huo Liuyun laughed. This was a trap. The army that had been standing here openly at the start was just a portion of their forces. Even more experts had been lying in wait. There had only been 500,000 people in the army lying in front of the Yinyang Valley. However, over 1,500,000 experts were hiding throughout the outer region. Huo Liuyun had been worried that Long Chen and the others wouldn't dare to come if they saw so many people, so they had put on a weak front to bait them in. Their appetite was truly large. Kill! The huge army charged. They were like bloodthirsty beasts wearing sinister smiles. Suddenly, the ground shook. Before that army even arrived, 12 flame blades sliced toward Chu Yao. The 12 of them besieged her. As a result, Chu Yao summoned an endless stream of wooden stakes, defending herself. The worst thing was that she also had to be on guard against the sudden sneak attack of the other divine emissary of Bloodkill Hall. Even with her skill in defense, she was unable to block their continuous stream of attacks. Her wooden stakes were blown apart rapidly. Just as she retreated, the third divine emissary appeared, launching a fatal blow. However, he had just appeared when a single and ordinary sword slashed toward his waist. The sword was simple, but the will of the sword Dao was contained within it. The divine emissary's hair stood on end, and he hastily blocked. Sparks flew along with a burst of sword light. An icy-faced man appeared in the air. "Who are you?" demanded the divine emissary. Fourth captain of Long Chen's Dragonblood Legion, Zifeng. Zifeng had arrived. However, he no longer appeared the same as before. He himself wasn't different. It was his sword that had changed. His current sword gave off an ancient aura, seeming to merge with his body. It was difficult to discern where the sword ended and where the man began. Although his sword was now sheathed, A sharp light was still escaping. That light was chilling. Zifeng had finally abandoned his normal sword, and now he appeared like a completely different person. He had become aloof, colder. For a person like you to use a sword is blasphemy to the sword. Your life ends here. Zifeng's arm reached back. It was impossible to even see his movements, as no one even saw him grab his sword. All they saw was something that appeared to be a streak of lightning slicing apart the dome of the sky, slicing through all laws. Boom. The Bloodkill Hall's divine emissary couldn't dodge, and despite doing his best to defend, he coughed up a mouthful of blood and was sent flying. The sword is sacred among weapons, but you actually use it in such a shameful manner. You insult the sword Dao. Today, I'll kill you to maintain the honor of the sword. Zifeng's sword spun through the air. After forming a sword seal with his left hand, the tip of his sword shook, emitting a beautiful lotus flower. As it bloomed, all of heaven and earth were sealed. At the center of the lotus was the tip of Zifeng's sword. The sword itself wasn't very fancy. It was simple and direct, but the blossoming lotus Zifeng had unleashed through the heavenly Daos into chaos. It was like everything in this world was under the control of Zifeng's sword. The assassin let out a roar, and his manifestation unfurled. Endless energy streamed into his body from his manifestation. Just as he was about to face Zifeng's sword with all his power, Zifeng snorted and his sword turned away from its target. Instead of slicing the divine emissary, Zifeng's sword sliced through the manifestation behind the divine emissary. Divine light flowed through the sword, cutting apart the very heavens. Nothing was invulnerable in front of that sword. The manifestation behind the divine emissary was actually sliced in two and slowly fell apart in the sky. What? Heavens, how is that possible? This sight dumbfounded everyone. How could a heavenly Tao manifestation be sliced apart? Was that some kind of power above the heavenly Daos? Having his manifestation sliced shocked the divine emissary. He found himself severed from heavenly Tao energy. Zifeng's sword fell, and the divine emissary hastily blocked. However, without his heavenly Tao energy, his power had dropped sharply. The sword chi landed on his body and almost cut him in two. He was absolutely appalled. He was the strongest of the three divine emissaries, the so-called Heaven Slayer of the Heaven, Earth, and Manslayer ranks. As for the one who was trapped by Lu Rian and on his deathbed struggle, he was the Earth Slayer divine emissary. In the Bloodkill Hall, there was a certain rule, and that was that their assassins would not accept missions to assassinate sword cultivators. They also wouldn't fight them because sword cultivators were the bane of assassins. However, the Heaven Slayer divine emissary had been extremely conceited, thinking that he could break that rule. He had also secretly assassinated several sword cultivators, thinking that this legend of sword cultivators was false. However, Zifeng had broken that confidence. His terrifying sword Dao felt completely unstoppable to him. The Heaven Slayer divine emissary once more summoned his manifestation. His injuries instantly healed, and he suddenly summoned 81 clones, each of them with an identical aura to his own. Zifeng's expression was cold. Not even looking at the clones charging toward him, he slashed behind him. The true body amongst those clones was sent flying once more and coughed up blood. Illusion arts can only trick people's eyes and ears. As long as a person has no fear or desire in their hearts, can the heart be tricked? Zifeng sneered and once more charged after him. Each slash of Zifeng's sword injured the divine emissary. None of his attacks missed. This terrifying assassin didn't even have the power to retaliate in front of him. What a terrifying sword cultivator. He's not an Empyrean, but even without any heavenly Tao energy, he can slice apart heaven and earth. Sword cultivators could be said to be a rare profession. Although over half of cultivators use swords, those people weren't actually focused on the sword Tao. The so-called sword cultivators were those who had given their entire lives to the sword. Other than the sword, they would have nothing else. The majority of people viewed the sword as nothing more than a tool for battle. Hence, there was an immense difference between the two sides. Sword cultivators might even be called fanatics. The divine emissary roared furiously. He tried 17 different movements arts to get away, but they were all useless. No matter how he dodged, he would have to face Zifeng's sword. If he didn't block, he would die. Bastard, just wait. Finally, he crumbled. He couldn't fight Zifeng. None of his abilities worked against him. With a furious roar, he actually faded, vanishing in midair. A clamor erupted amongst the neutral camp's experts. The Bloodkill Hall's divine emissary was actually fleeing. However, he had just vanished when Zifeng's sword lit up again. He sliced the void, and a panicked figure came tumbling out of the opening he made. It was the divine emissary. So he didn't really escape but used some magical art to block himself from being sensed, hiding right in front of us. Someone on the divine emissary's level had reached a practically perfect level in this technique. It was essentially impossible to see anything off when he wanted to conceal himself. However, no matter how amazing the trick, once it was exposed, it no longer seemed mysterious. The Heaven Slayer divine emissary coughed up blood. He had been injured again when Zifeng's sword forced him out of the void. "You aren't qualified to run in front of me," said Zifeng, his sword once more slashing out. The Heaven Slayer divine emissary roared. He tried to run, and his figure flitted through the air, but he was never able to escape the range of Zifeng's sword. Zifeng was chasing after the Heaven Slayer divine emissary, Lu Rian was attacking the other divine emissary, and Chu Yao was fighting against the Flame Divine Palace's 12 experts. However, during this time, the Martial Heaven Alliance's army was attacked from the front and behind. They were in a critical state. The 1,500,000 experts that had been hiding included several existences with terrifying auras. They were actually experts on the same level as Difeng and the others. Martial Heaven Alliance, today is the day of your destruction. There were 3 powerful experts of the ancient races laughing as they slaughtered the army of the Martial Heaven Alliance. Suddenly, a golden arrow shot through the air, exploding at their feet. I swept through the 4 seas, crossed 1,000 mountains, caused huge billows in heaven and earth, slaughtered demons, eliminated devils, plucked the stars and moon. 'Tis I, the unrivaled hero Guoran. Following that arrow's explosion, a chant rang out through the air. The giant arrow exploded and unleashed a mass of fragments that enveloped everything within 100 miles. The experts at the core of the explosion were instantly obliterated. Those with divine items protecting their bodies barely managed to survive, but they were coughing up blood. What damn thing was that? Nothing was left in an area of dozens of miles. There wasn't a single blade of grass still alive. The sharp fragments that had flown out tore through armor, and they rapidly spun from the force of the explosion. Bastard! These are divine item fragments. One of the experts had been struck by one of the fragments, but relying on his divine item, he had managed to block it. As a result, he noticed that this fist-sized fragment was actually part of a divine item. It was no wonder it was so sharp and easily tore through armor. Just at this moment, more arrows shot over, exploding in their midst. Guoran was standing in the sky, holding a giant golden crossbow, shooting arrow after arrow. The head of these giant arrows was filled with divine item fragments. Although their power was a far cry from the detonation of a divine item, even Empyreans would be killed if they were in the effective explosion area. They would only be able to survive if they had a divine item level armor. These fragments had been given to Guoran by Long Chen, while the intact divine items had been distributed to those who could use them. However, there was a portion of bizarre divine items that no one was skilled with, so Guoran had smashed them apart for their fragments. Kill that golden monstrosity. Guoran had already shot over 100 arrows. Those arrows had killed tens of thousands of experts. However, if you compared it to the army of 1,500,000, it wasn't a devastating blow. The real effect was a vicious blow to their morale. Guoran's actions fully provoked them. 3 ancient race experts shot after him, their manifestations appearing behind them. Their auras weren't weaker than Difeng, true Immortal Jiaoqi, and the others. The ancient races also sent out 3 peak experts? exclaimed someone from the neutral camp. That's normal. If you think about it, the Corrupt Path sent their 3 kings, the Bloodkill Hall sent 3 divine emissaries, Heavenly Fate Island sent their 4 fate princes, and Pill Valley sent those 12 experts on top of Hualian. Since this is the case, the ancient races naturally have to send experts on that level. There are also 2 powerful experts from the Ancient Family Alliance hiding in the crowd. They should be 2 peak experts sent in addition to Difeng. Then you mean even the Xian beasts have more than just true immortal Jiaoqi? Heavens, I just noticed 2 of them. Through that person's deduction, others noticed 2 terrifying Xian beast experts hidden in the crowd. They hadn't joined the fight, but the fluctuations coming out of them were heavy like a mountain. It seems the Corrupt Path, Ancient Races, Ancient Family Alliance, Xian Beasts, Bloodkill Hall, Heavenly Fate Island, and Pill Valley are planning on completely annihilating the elites of the Martial Heaven Alliance. Without the fracturing of the interior of the Martial Heaven Alliance, such a thing would be impossible. It could only be said that the Martial Heaven Alliance's problem is within itself. Within the neutral camp, a woman tightly held another woman's hand. She begged, "Big sister, go help Long Chen. After all, he saved me." The one speaking was Qi Xian, while the one she was begging was Qi Fengxue. They had just happened to encounter Long Chen in the yin-yang world. Qi Fengxue sighed, "We can't help with this." "Why not?" Qi Xian was very disappointed. "Our heaven-reaching ancient castle exists because of an agreement with the other powers. We can be independent because we don't interfere with their struggles, but if we did, it would be breaking the rules of our alliance. Not only can I not interfere, but these people standing here on the neutral side also can't. If we did, we would be drawn into this whirlpool. If we entered this whirlpool, our heaven-reaching ancient castle would be drawn in as well. So don't blame your big sister," said Qi Fengxue helplessly. These neutral powers could not participate in other people's grudges. So other powers didn't want to provoke them, allowing them to maintain a peaceful territory. However, if they were to take the initiative to enter the whirlpool, then they would be breaking the rules of that treaty. In the future, they would have to join either the Martial Heaven Alliance or Pill Valley's side. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to escape unscathed. So even though Long Chen had shown kindness to Qi Xian, and not helping him during this time would be like refusing to pay back the favor, Qi Fengxue still couldn't do anything. It would implicate her whole family. If I wasn't from a neutral power, I'd definitely join Long Chen. Pill Valley's actions are unacceptable. I'd even describe them as vile, added someone else. As people from neutral parties, they were able to see things clearer than others who were part of the struggle. That was the difference between people who were part of the game and people who were outside the game. It's a pity. The difference is too immense. Even if Long Chen grew 3 heads and 6 arms, he wouldn't be able to turn things around. Someone else sighed regretfully. On the battlefield, Long Chen was fighting against Hualian, true immortal Jiaoqi, and Xieluo. Although he was at full power with his divine ring spinning behind him, he was still at a disadvantage. Hualian, true immortal Jiaoqi, and Xieluo attacked frantically, not letting Long Chen have any chance to use a paragon art. This was their safest way of subduing him, as well as the most effective. Even trying to drag one of them down with him would be very difficult. The other battlefields were mostly even. Only Zifeng was at an advantage, dominating the Heaven Slayer Divine Emissary. However, that Divine Emissary was also a peak expert, and even if he was countered by Zifeng as a sword cultivator, he was able to last for a while. The 3 ancient race experts flew over at Guoran. They looked like they wanted to immediately tear him apart. "Ignorant children, you dare to challenge your daddy Gua? Using my boss's words, killing you will only take one move. Which one of you 3 dares to send yourself to death first? Or do you want to come together?" Guoran put away his crossbow, instead summoning his golden armor and a pair of sabers. He pointed one of the sabers at the 3 ancient race experts. "Die!" One of the ancient race experts took the lead, his battle axe shining. If the 3 of them attacked at once, it would be elevating Guoran's status, as well as lowering their own. "Tisish, for someone like you, it would be my loss if you could even break my golden battle armor's defenses," taunted Guoran. His armor also lit up, and he crossed his sabers in front of him, taking on a defensive posture. Today I'll shatter this tortoise shell of yours. The ancient race expert raised his battle axe. A terrifying divine might raged. Dragon blood cross slash. Just as that expert was preparing to unleash a powerful paragon art, Guoran let out a shout. The void shook and over 12,000 dragonblood warriors appeared in the distance. Their bodies lit up, and rays of light merged into Guoran's body. A giant cross slashed out. The center of it struck the ancient race expert. That ancient race expert had been summoning a paragon art. Just as he was about to finish, he suddenly saw this attack, causing his expression to change. He wanted to dodge, but his paragon art had already been prepared. He was caught. He had no time to unleash it and no time to dispel it. His head was blank. A single thought appeared. He had been taken in. The giant cross blew him apart along with the initial form of his paragon art. The immense power sent the other two ancient race experts flying. They wildly vomited blood. This sudden attack and result was unbelievable to the spectators. Just like that, a peak expert had been slain? Furthermore, he was slain by a nameless nobody. He's called Guoran? How come I've never heard of him? Asked a person in the neutral camp. He actually does have some fame. He got into the top 10 of the Devil Slaughter rankings, but there was a great deal of controversy over his ranking. Apparently, his cultivation base is average, his talent is very lacking, and his actual combat power is garbage. However, he is skilled in the forging arts, and just by relying on his armor, he is able to fight against peak experts. How sinister! He intentionally acted like he was going to defend, baiting his opponent into attacking, only to unleash a sudden attack as his opponent's paragon art reached a critical moment. That person's death was quite unjust. No matter what, being able to use a paragon art meant that you were a peak expert. However, such a figure had died just like this. It gave others a strange feeling. Come, that one didn't count. Let's see who can break my defense. Guoran once more took the same posture, facing the two furious ancient race experts. Fuck off. The two of them naturally wouldn't fall for it again. Wielding their divine items, they charged at Guoran. First captain of Longchen's Dragonblood Legion, Gu Yang, is here for pointers. A spear pierced through the air, and a bald warrior charged at one of the ancient race experts, his entire body covered in blood-colored scales. Boom. Their two divine items clashed, ripping apart the void. The ancient race expert was knocked back by Gu Yang's spear, stunned. Everyone else was also stunned. Zifeng was beating the Heaven Slayer divine emissary, and now Gu Yang had forced back this ancient race expert. Were all the warriors of the Dragonblood Legion so terrifying? Each captain had the power of a peak expert? Just as Gu Yang attacked, the sky dimmed. A giant wing slammed down at the other ancient race expert. A multicolored wing smashed down from the sky. Brilliant light erupted out of it. Cloud had now refined the blue-eye peacock's essence blood, and her aura had transformed. The power of her attack shook the sky. Boom. The ancient race expert hastily activated his divine item, only to be sent flying by Cloud's attack. Cloud let out a crystal-clear bird cry. A black ray of light shot after that expert. The ancient race expert roared. His manifestation shook, and the roaring of countless beasts suddenly came from it. He was going all out, unleashing his divine item and activating his paragon art. He had no other choice. The instant Cloud's attack appeared, his hair stood on end. This was a terrifying attack that he couldn't take lightly. The light of a paragon art filled the sky. Two forbidden powers clashed, causing heaven and earth to rumble. Heavens, when did so many terrifying existences appear in the Dragonblood Legion? Startled cries came from the neutral camp. Zifeng, Guoran, Gu Yang, and Cloud had shown power equivalent to a peak expert. Brothers of the Martial Heaven Alliance, don't panic. This so-called army is nothing more than a mob. Dragonblood Legion. Guoran gave a rallying cry. Golden wings spread on his back, and he charged toward the rear army. "Bastard, come at me if you have any guts. I'll smash apart your tortoise shell." Someone from the Xian beasts suddenly charged toward Guoran. This expert was also a peak expert. His status was only slightly lower than true Immortal Jiaoqi, and his combat power was only slightly lower than him. Killing someone else would only take one move, but as for you, you're not even fit to fight me. Guoran actually ignored him, charging toward the ordinary experts. Second captain of Long Chen's Dragonblood Legion, Li Qi, here for a challenge. The ground suddenly split open, and an earthen giant climbed out. Li Qi was standing on top of its head when it first climbed up, but then he merged within it. Golden runes flowed around the earthen giant. Rather than being made of earth, it now seemed to be made of gold. It came to life, unleashing a powerful punch at that Xian beast expert. The Xian beast expert unleashed an all-out attack but was still sent flying. Although the golden giant was huge, it was surprisingly agile. The Xian beast expert started a furious battle against the golden giant. However, just at that moment, on the other side, another golden giant climbed out of the ground. Third captain of Long Chen's Dragonblood Legion, Song Mingyuan, here for advice. Song Mingyuan and Li Qi were the same. They were both powerful earth cultivators, but through the purification of their bloodline, by stimulating the potential of their ancestors' blood, a mutation had occurred in their earth energy, giving birth to a trace of metal energy. Their normal earthen giants were powerful but lacked a certain toughness, a certain supplyability. In a direct clash, their bodies would easily crumble. By adding this metal energy, their movements became smoother. Most importantly, Guoran, with his heaven-defying karmic luck, had led the Dragonblood Legion through the Yin-Yang world, and he had found a secret tome relating to earth cultivators. The two of them had learned a merging art, allowing them to become one with these golden giants. The two golden giants gave off immense pressure to the other side, while the morale of the Martial Heaven Alliance's disciples soared. Guoran had already reached the rear army. His golden sabers were slaughtering his enemies, with no one able to stop him. These golden sabers were no longer his old golden sabers. They were a pair of divine items Long Chen had gained after killing a Xian beast expert. With a pair of divine items, Guoran was like a tiger with wings. Die! Guoran had just charged into the opposing army when two figures appeared, one coming from the left and the other coming from the right. Their auras gave off a chilling feeling. They were from the Ancient Family Alliance. The truth was that the Corrupt Path, Ancient Races, Ancient Family Alliance, Xian Beasts, Pill Valley, Bloodkill Hall, and Heavenly Fate Island had made a meticulous trap using the Yin-Yang world. They had sent out powerful killers to make sure that Long Chen never left the Yin-Yang world alive. As a result, they had sent their elite geniuses. Other than Pill Valley, all the other powers had sent at least 3 peak experts each. These peak experts had been hidden from the rest of the world. As for these 2 experts from the Ancient Family Alliance, they were on the same level as Zifeng. The 2 of them had just attacked when tearing sounds appeared. The void was being torn apart by divine feathers slicing through the air like swords. Meng Qi had appeared to counter them. The 2 Ancient Family Alliance's experts slashed their divine items into the feathers, causing booming noises to ring out. Meng Qi was surrounded by flying divine feathers. They were incomparably sharp. Even without cloud, Meng Qi was able to block them. A storm of wind blades suddenly unfurled as Tang Wanner also joined. Shi and Meng Qi each took one of these 2 Ancient Family Alliance experts. Their sharp attacks forced them to retreat over and over again. Just at this moment, the Dragonblood Legion arrived at the battlefield. Over 12,000 Dragonblood warriors charged in. They showed people why a battle was bloody, why it was cruel, why it was violent. All the Dragonblood warriors were covered in red scale armor. They were like revived evil dragons. Currently, over 2,000 of the Dragonblood warriors were Empyreans. Although the majority were still rank 9 Celestials, their power caused even the Empyreans to shiver. The current Dragonblood warriors were the true Dragonblood warriors. They had finished refining the evil dragon essence blood. In fact, the density of their dragon blood was even greater than Long Chen's. After all, Long Chen had only absorbed a single drop of dragon blood, while the metal-devouring evil dragon had been waiting for a chance for nirvanic rebirth, resulting in it collecting a great deal of essence blood. The dragon blood warriors were like death gods. As soon as they entered the battlefield, they started a slaughter. They cut through their enemies like cabbages. Flesh and blood flew. I've long since heard the rumors that the Dragon Blood Legion is the #1 legion of the continent. But this power is even greater than the rumors. Even the people of the neutral camp were stunned, their voices shuddering. The most chilling thing was that the Dragon Blood warriors were eerily calm as they slaughtered their enemies. They didn't wear any expressions. That was even more frightening than having sinister expressions. The Dragon Blood warriors essentially cut people down with one move each. They rarely needed a second move. Anyone who met their calm gazes would immediately tremble. If it was just one or two, or even just a few hundred such experts, that would be acceptable. However, there were over 10,000 of them. Each of them was a top expert, a slaughter machine. The scales of the battlefield instantly shifted. The army that had been lying in wait and had surrounded the Martial Heaven Alliance's army from the outside were thrown into chaos. The Dragon Blood warriors' killing efficiency made their enemies feel despair. They were finally afraid. In just the first clash, tens of thousands of their people were slain. The rest retreated in terror. The entire battlefield tilted in favor of the Martial Heaven Alliance. However, Long Chen's side was still a cause for concern. He was surrounded by Hua Liyan, true Immortal Jiaoqi, and Xie Luo. He was relying entirely on his celestial lightning body blink to keep up with them. He was at a complete disadvantage, but the three of them didn't seem to be in a hurry. With the three of them working together, there was little chance of a reversal. Why do I feel like Hua Liyan, true Immortal Jiaoqi, and Xie Luo aren't going all out? Am I misjudging things? Asked someone from the neutral camp. It does seem like they haven't gone all out. Their only goal is Long Chen. They don't seem to care about the others' lives. The three of them seem to plan on wearing away Long Chen's energy. Once he's out of energy, they'll go all out to kill him, guessed someone. Boom. Suddenly, the world shook. Yin and Yang energy gathered within the Yin-Yang Valley, creating a giant tide of energy. Life and death energy formed an illusory space. The golden tide has arrived. Startled cries rang out. For some reason, the golden tide was coming a few hours earlier than expected. Snatch away the golden tide. Don't let these idiots get it, shouted Guoran. The Dragon Blood Legion immediately slaughtered their way into the Golden Tide region. At the same time, the people in the neutral camp also flew over. The area of the Golden Tide wasn't very large. The neutral camp's experts immediately carved out their own territory within it upon entering, creating a clear dividing line. Life and death energy had condensed into black and white mist in the sky. It was extremely dense. This could bring a special realm where life and death alternated, allowing them to understand its profundities easier. Based on Zifeng and the others' plans, they were supposed to have already killed Long Chen and the others before the Golden Tide started. Now that it was starting early, both sides were somewhat at a loss. However, the Dragon Blood Legion wasn't. They pushed forward, creating a path. Brothers of the Martial Heaven Alliance, hurry and enter the Golden Tide. The Dragon Blood Legion will be your protectors. Guoran was the first of the Dragon Blood Legion to enter the Golden Tide. He was essentially a killing machine. No one could stop him. Not only did he have his golden divine sabers, but he also had hidden mechanisms he could use whenever he wanted. The Dragon Blood warriors quickly created a path, allowing the over 300,000 disciples of the Martial Heaven Alliance to enter the Golden Tide region. After that immense clash, the Martial Heaven Alliance's army had lost half their number. As for the coalition army of over 2 million experts, they numbered under 800,000 now. This had been an extremely miserable battle. Corpses were piled into mountains, and rivers of blood flowed. The surviving army of the Martial Heaven Alliance entered the Golden Tide, while the Dragon Blood Legion spread out, protecting them, not letting the coalition army approach them. Light was released from each of their bodies, creating a giant barrier. Do your best to peacefully comprehend the mysteries of life and death within. As long as the Dragonblood warriors don't die, there's no need to worry about your lives, announced Guoran. The Dragonblood warriors were defending the outer region of the Golden Tide, and more disciples of the Martial Heaven Alliance were entering the Golden Tide to comprehend the law of life and death. "What about you?" asked one of the disciples to the Dragonblood warriors. Although this was his sole encounter with the Dragonblood warriors, he felt great respect and gratitude toward them. To have been able to fight alongside such people filled him with pride. He couldn't help asking, "We're not interested in the Golden Tide. Our only goal is to kill people." "Don't waste any more time," shouted back one of the Dragonblood warriors. He directly tossed that disciple who was about to speak again into the Golden Tide. Life and death energy continuously transformed and evolved inside the Golden Tide. Starlight flickered, countless manifestations appeared and faded. This was an incredibly rare opportunity. Although the various large powers had other treasures that could raise a person's comprehension of life and death, they had at most 1 or 2 such treasures, while there might be over 10 candidates to compete for it. On the other hand, anyone standing in the Golden Tide could enjoy the same benefits. The neutral camp's experts had already carved out an area for themselves. They sat down, entering a meditative state. However, some experts were only quietly standing there. They didn't seem to care too much about the life and death energy around them. They were still focused on the battlefield. Either they had a certain confidence in comprehending life and death themselves, or they didn't care about this life and death energy, or they could comprehend it without entering a meditative state. Seeing the Dragonblood warriors abandon their chance to comprehend life and death to protect them, the Martial Heaven Alliance's disciples were filled with gratitude. They hastily sat down and did their best to comprehend the energy around them. They knew that the Golden Tide would only last for a short time. Once it was over, they would no longer have the chance. The Dragonblood warriors had formed a giant circle around them, protecting them. They slaughtered their enemies. Now that the Martial Heaven Alliance's disciples had entered the Golden Tide, all the pressure was on the Dragonblood warriors. Now! Suddenly, a roar rang out. It was unknown from whom it came, but the ground burst apart all of a sudden. Countless experts from the Corrupt Path, Ancient Races, Ancient Family Alliance, and the Xian beasts charged out from beneath the ground. So they actually had another trap. A startled cry came from the neutral camp. The speaker had arrived here very early, but there had already been a large army guarding this place when he had arrived. At that time, he had felt it to be strange. Now seeing so many experts suddenly charge out of the ground, he suddenly understood. Perhaps they had set up a giant transportation formation in advance. This group of experts was their secret weapon. Their previous clash had caused heavy losses on both sides. Whether it was the Martial Heaven Alliance or the Coalition Army, both sides had lost over half their people. However, things still hadn't reached the climax. Now that the Dragonblood warriors were defending the Martial Heaven Alliance's disciples in the Golden Tide, they had nowhere to retreat. That was because behind them were the lives that they were protecting. The Coalition Army launched this secret attack to give the Righteous Path a thunderous blow. Neither the Dragonblood Legion nor the Martial Heaven Alliance's army would have any chance of surviving. This giant army continued to surge out of the ground, and their numbers had reached 500,000. With so many newcomers arriving, it caused another reversal of the battlefield. What a frightening scheme. This time, the Dragonblood Legion might be doomed. Having fallen for this trap, they won't even have a chance to run. Although the neutral camp's people weren't participating in the battle, they were still human, while the Coalition Army had people from the Corrupt Path, Ancient Races, and Xian beasts who were hostile to them. So they hoped that the Martial Heaven Alliance would win, but things did not bode well for them. Bastards! I'll go all out. The Martial Heaven Alliance's experts shot back to their feet. They raised their weapons once more. No need. Have you forgotten our words? Go comprehend life and death in peace. As long as the Dragonblood warriors don't fall, no one will be able to touch a single hair on your body, shouted a Dragonblood warrior. But they dash. It's just a pack of pigs, nothing to be worried about. Stop wasting time, shouted the Dragonblood warrior. The blood-colored dragon armor that each of the Dragonblood warriors was wearing suddenly had divine runes appear on them. Divine light flowed out, connecting all of them. The Dragonblood warriors had actually activated their spirit blood, which was partially the dragon blood. All of them let out a heaven-shaking roar and started another bout of slaughter. Half of them suddenly knelt, while the other half's blades mercilessly fell. As soon as their attacks fell, the dragon scales around the kneeling Dragonblood warriors suddenly dimmed. Terrifying rays of light tore through the air. As a result, the experts that had just charged over from the other side were blown apart. This was a shocking attack, one that created thousands of corpses. Half the Dragonblood warriors had attacked, while the other half loaned their energy to them, doubling their power. The current Dragonblood warriors were no longer the old Dragonblood warriors. They were Dragonblood warriors in reality as well as name. The evil dragon essence blood had transformed them. When using the Dragonblood battle armor, their power was multiplied by 10 times. With the assistance of a powerful formation, they were able to send power to each other. Back when Guoran had slain that expert from the ancient races, he had borrowed energy from the Dragonblood warriors. In front of that terrifying combined power, even a peak expert was slain. The Dragonblood Legion is present. Surrender or die. Battle intent soared out of the Dragonblood warriors. With this one attack, they had emptied the space in front of them. At least 100,000 experts had just been slain. The new army of 500,000 experts was completely shaken. They had never seen such a terrifying legion. It seems the plan will have to change. Up in the sky, Hua Lion gloomily sent a message to Xie Luo and true Immortal Jiaoqi. I just knew that those idiots from Heavenly Fate Island weren't reliable. They just had to use some stupid scheme and nonsense about waiting for the time to be ripe. What nonsense? They even said that as long as we could keep Longchen entangled, they could easily annihilate the Dragonblood Legion and the Martial Heaven Alliance's trash. Now it looks like we are outplayed like idiots. True Immortal Jiaoqi roared furiously. He didn't use a spiritual message, but his actual voice. Their plan had been made by Heavenly Fate Island's 4 Fate Princes. It had been extremely detailed and looked to be perfect. Most importantly, the mastermind behind this matter was Pill Valley. They were in charge, and they seemed to rely on Heavenly Fate Island's miraculous abilities. That was why these experts had followed the plan of the Fate Princes. However, 2 of those Fate Princes had been slain by Longchen. As for the other 2 Fate Princes, they were hiding in the army, not daring to reveal themselves. The 3 of them had no idea what those 2 were doing. Their so-called secret army, which was supposed to be able to instantly turn things around, had been turned into a pack of fools by a single attack from the Dragonblood Legion. The Xian beasts were innately violent and didn't like these schemes. So true Immortal Jiaoqi hadn't liked it from the start. However, for the big picture, he had endured it. Now that things were going off script, his temper exploded. What kind of garbage plan was this? He even wondered whether they had worked together with Longchen to con them. From the start, they had agreed that their main mission was to eliminate the Martial Heaven Alliance and Longchen's people in the Yin-Yang world. The other goal was for them to enter the Golden Tide to comprehend life and death. That was especially important to the Xian beasts. The Xian beasts weren't human. Although they had tough physical bodies, they weren't close to the heavenly Daos. That was why they would transform into human form from the 10th rank, so they could get closer to the heavenly Daos. Due to their innate deficit, their comprehension skills were inferior to the human race. That was why he had repeatedly said that whatever plan they went with, it had to guarantee that the Xian beasts would be able to enter the Golden Tide when the time came. However, now the Golden Tide had come, and their secret weapon had been crushed. That new army was at a loss. True Immortal Jiaoqi wanted to devour them alive. In his fury, he no longer had any misgivings. He directly cursed Heavenly Fate Island's people. Could this idiotic plan go any worse? The 2 Fate Princes were hiding in the crowd. They had already switched into other disciples' robes and even taken off their Taoist headbands. They were frightened. They had never seen anyone as terrifying as Long Chen. Having personally seen one of their fellow Fate Princes get killed, their courage was broken. They could calculate life, they could calculate death, but all those calculations only had to do with others. They had to be transcendent figures of the mortal world. That was because if they ever calculated that death was coming for them, they would be more cowardly than anyone. The two of them were hiding, but through some secret communication abilities, they were able to relay orders. As for anything else, that would be up to the heavens. The two of them wanted to run, but they were also afraid that Long Chen would notice them, so they continued to hide in the army. Their plans and arrangements were actually very brilliant. Long Chen's own plans had been thrown into disorder because of them. They had managed to take the initiative. However, the Dragonblood Legion was far stronger than their predictions. As Long Chen grew stronger, it became more difficult to calculate anything about the people around him. Even calculating anything about the heaven-splitting battle sect had been difficult due to their connection to Long Chen. It had taken them many days. Although they had already done their best to give a high estimation of the Dragonblood Legion, they had still misjudged. The Dragonblood Legion's power far exceeded their imagination. Fucking Heavenly Fate Island, I don't care anymore. I'm bringing my people into the Golden Tide. True Immortal Jiaoqi finally lost his patience. With a furious roar, he retreated from his battle against Long Chen, charging over to the Dragonblood Legion. He had decided to stop listening to Heavenly Fate Island's plans. He would do things his way. True Immortal Jiaoqi was furious. He had gotten enough of this stupid way of using their troops. He had to win some territory for the Xian beasts as this opportunity was too important for them. He left the battlefield, going straight toward the Golden Tide. He wanted to create a path for his fellow Xian beasts. I'm not accompanying you either. Their so-called heaven-peering arts are just a giant joke. Xie Luo was also gloomy. The incomparably mysterious Heavenly Fate Island, the one claimed to have flawless calculations, had actually come up with such a garbage plan. They might as well have blindly directed the troops. Xie Luo left Long Chen to Hualayan, also creating a chance for the Corrupt Paths experts. Even if he couldn't obtain that chance, he wouldn't let the Righteous Paths experts do as they pleased. After all, the Corrupt Path was the Righteous Path's mortal enemy. As for the Righteous Path's connection with Pill Valley, the Ancient Races, Ancient Family Alliance, Xian Beasts, and Bloodkill Hall, things could sway in any direction. Today, those powers were working together with the Corrupt Path against the Righteous Path. But maybe tomorrow, they would turn on the Corrupt Path for some profit. There were over 300,000 experts of the Righteous Path in the Golden Tide right now. If they lived, then at least half of them would have a high chance of comprehending life and death, allowing them to reach the half-step Nether Passage realm. If a tenth of those half-step Nether Passage experts reached the true Nether Passage realm, then that would be a calamitous blow to the Corrupt Path. Xie Luo was the descendant of the leader of the Corrupt Path, Xie Wenin. He was vicious and had the foresight to know when to be ruthless. With a snap decision in front of him, between Long Chen and the 300,000 experts of the Martial Heaven Alliance, he chose the latter. He knew that there would be many chances to kill Long Chen before he grew up. He still wasn't as great of a threat as the latter. With true Immortal Jiaoqi losing his mind and acting first, Xie Luo followed, abandoning Long Chen to attack the Dragonblood warriors. Long Chen smiled mockingly. Taking a breath, he was about to stop them when rumbling rang out. The ground exploded, and a giant willow tree appeared in front of true Immortal Jiaoqi and Xie Luo. Lu Rian had come. As for the Bloodkill Hall's divine emissary that had been trapped in her branches, he had forever disappeared from this world. Trapped in her cage, no one had been able to help him. Despite unleashing countless powerful moves, the only thing left for him had been death. After killing the divine emissary, Lu Rian had immediately gone to help Chu Yao. Chu Yao had been in a deadlock with the 12 experts of the Flame Divine Palace. Those 12 experts had formed a formation to trap her within. As a result, Chu Yao had summoned an endless tide of wooden stakes to fight them. Originally, Flame cultivators would have an advantage over wood cultivators, but Chu Yao's would contained metal energy as well, and due to her resonance with the undying willow, her wooden stakes had also become extremely tough. They had an innate fire resistance. As a result, both sides had entered a battle of attrition. The result of such a battle was obvious. Their defeat would have only been a matter of time. Although they were 12 powerful Empyreans whose manifestations had started to awaken, whether it was in terms of their total spiritual yuan capacity or their recovery rate, they couldn't compete with Chu Yao, a genius with a wood spirit body. Chu Yao had roots in the ground, drawing out an unending stream of energy from the world. She was able to fight evenly against these 12. In other words, once their spiritual yuan was exhausted, she would still have plenty of energy. That was why once Lu Rian came to help her, Chu Yao told her to go help Long Chen. Although Lu Rian didn't like Long Chen, this wasn't a time for pettiness. She went to reinforce him, resulting in her arriving as true immortal Jiaoqi, and Xue Luo attacked the Dragonblood Legion. Willow branches devoured them. It was like a sea of deathly tentacles. Scram! True immortal Jiaoqi roared. The Qilin figure in his manifestation rumbled as he brought out his Qilin power. Die! Xie Luo also shouted, and a blood-red crescent moon blade appeared in his hand. When he slashed it, the sky turned red. Boom! Lu Rian's branches were blown apart. Even Lu Rian herself was sent flying. Divine marks appeared in the air as terrifying fluctuations spread. Rian, watch out! Long Chen suddenly let out a cry. He saw Xie Luo's manifestation tremble, and a familiar aura appeared. Corpse puppet divine sealing art. The sky suddenly dimmed. Over 1,000 corpse puppets descended from it, enveloping Lu Rian. Those corpse puppets extended their hands, unleashing a stream of runes that wrapped around Lu Rian. It was a similar move to what had sealed Long Chen before, however, this seal was 10 times stronger. After all, that time, Xie Luo had only brought out 108 corpse puppets. In truth, Xie Luo was just as infuriated as true immortal Jiaoqi. So many disciples of the corrupt path had died here because they had trusted the idiots from Heavenly Fate Island. Now, he no longer wanted to hide his power. He wanted to shake his opponents, to show the dominating power of the corrupt path. He wanted to slay Lu Rian in one move. Lu Rian was startled. This seal was completed far too quickly, and there was no time for her to dodge. Runes trembled across her body as she attempted to break the seal. Die! True immortal Jiaoqi's Qilin halberd came piercing toward her. If it struck her in her vitals, then despite being an undying willow, she would be heavily injured. She might even die. However, just as true immortal Jiaoqi's halberd was about to pierce Lu Rian's body, the temperatures suddenly dropped. All the experts involuntarily shivered. An ice sword blocked the Qilin halberd. That seemingly unstoppable attack was stopped in the air just like that. An ice lotus bloomed rapidly on the tip of the ice sword. Even space was being frozen. As a result, everything within hundreds of miles was sealed with ice. What is this? Startled cries rang out from the experts. Just what kind of power was this? It's her? Long Chen's voice quivered slightly as he looked at that giant ice flower. He knew these spiritual fluctuations. It was her, definitely her. The ice flower also enveloped Lu Rian, as well as the corpse puppets. Those corpse puppets were turned into ice sculptures. They then shattered, transforming into crystalline bits that sparkled in the sunlight. With the corpse puppets destroyed, Lu Rian regained her freedom. She hastily fell back, staring in shock at that slender figure in front of her. Break! True immortal Jiaoqi was also frozen. With a furious roar, his Qilin halberd trembled, blowing away the ice crystals. From within those endless ice crystals, people finally saw a figure. She was lithe and graceful. Her body looked like it had been carved from jade, and her long black hair fell naturally to her waist. Her robes were as white as snow. Her eyes looked like gemstones, while her face seemed like it had been carved to be the epitome of beauty. She was like a fairy that had walked out of a painting. However, this peerlessly beautiful fairy was too cold. There wasn't the slightest emotion on her face. She truly looked like a statue. Snow and ice crystals slowly fell from the sky. The sunny weather seemed to have changed due to the descent of an ice goddess. The divine ice palaces, ice fairy, Yijiqiu. A name appeared in almost everyone's minds. Only a few of them had ever seen Yijiqiu, but everyone had heard rumors that the divine ice palace had produced an ice fairy who was practically a transcendent being. Seeing this woman who was like a sculpture, that name automatically appeared in everyone's mind. Jiqiu, we finally meet again. Longchen smiled, his eyes reddening. He would never forget the first and final smile Yijiqiu had given him as she lay in his arms in the Jiaoqi's secret realm. Sister Jiqiu. Tang Wan'er and the others also let out excited cries. The slightest trace of warmth appeared in Yijiqiu's icy eyes. She nodded toward everyone. Sorry for being late. Let's handle these enemies first before reminiscing. Yijiqiu, is your divine ice palace planning on interfering in our personal enmities? Demanded true Immortal Jiaoqi. I am not here representing the divine ice palace. I only represent myself. I, Yijiqiu, am also a member of the Dragon Blood Legion. Yijiqiu's announcement caused countless expressions to change. They had never heard that Yijiqiu was a member of the Dragon Blood Legion. This piece of news was absolutely shocking. I don't care who you represent. Anyone who blocks me shall die. True Immortal Jiaoqi was in no mood for this. The Golden Tide would only be present for a short time, so he couldn't tarry. Leave this big fellow to me. Lu Ruyan struck first. Having communicated with Chu Yao, she knew who Yijiqiu was. Although Yijiqiu was a rare ice cultivator, she was facing one of the strongest experts of the junior generation. 1 against 2, it was unlikely she could win. Hence, Lu Ruyan chose to fight true Immortal Jiaoqi. Although he was extremely powerful, she was confident in being able to stall him. On the other hand, Xie Luo clearly had a slight advantage over Lu Ruyan, so she left him to Yijiqiu. After that, Yijiqiu nodded and went to block Xie Luo's path. Xie Luo snorted, a cruel smile suddenly appearing on his face. He slowly raised his crescent moon blade and slowly cut his tongue on it. His blood flowed onto the blade. The crescent moon blade suddenly seemed to come to life, and boundless killing intent surged out of it. With a shout, Xie Luo slashed his blade at Yijiqiu. The crescent moon blade's runes lit up, roaring like a resentful spirit. With this slash, it was like 1,000 ghouls were wailing. This was a corrupt weapon with an extremely terrifying origin. It had slain countless numbers of lives and had refined the souls of countless resentful spirits. It had concentrated all that resentful and killing intent. The reason Lu Ruyan chose to fight true Immortal Jiaoqi was majorly because of this blade. Its aura made her feel sick. Today I'll get to experience just how powerful the heavenly corrupt blood blade that shakes the corrupt path is. Yijiqiu's expression was still icy. She slowly raised her sword that fluctuated like it was made of water. When it moved, the space behind her shook. Her manifestation appeared. Her manifestation was an endless world of ice and snow. Within the gorges and mountains of snow and ice, there was a sacred and holy palace. The palace was indistinct, but it still emitted a grand divine might. The temperature plummeted, and snow began drifting from the sky. The entire battlefield was affected. Yijiqiu made a simple swing of her blade. A bolt of energy condensed in the air. That energy instantly grew, becoming a giant blade that slashed towards Xie Luo. That wasn't sword chi but her terrifying ice energy that had condensed into a giant ice sword. What? Xie Luo was shocked. Even with all his experience, he had never seen such terrifying ice energy. The light from his blade intensified. Boom! The entire world shuddered, as ice shards flew in every direction. Xie Luo rapidly retreated. His hair was covered in frost, and even the hand holding his blade was quivering. Frost was condensing on it as well. How terrifying! So this is the innate ice spirit body. Practically no one can block it. Qi Fengxue looked at Yijiqiu with shock. The innate ice spirit body existed only in legend. Such geniuses might not appear even once every 10,000 years. Xie Luo's impudence had resulted in him suffering an injury in the first place. Fortunately, his sense of danger had alerted him, and just as he was struck by that sword, he activated the full power of his manifestation, allowing him to escape calamity. Yi Zhiqiu's ice energy was no ordinary ice energy. It was something that could directly freeze a person's Yuan spirit. If his Yuan spirit was frozen, then Xie Luo would die here no matter how many lives he had. That was the terror of the ice spirit body. When Yi Zhiqiu was brought to the northern source by an expert, all that had been known was that she possessed an ice constitution that made her a rare genius at cultivating ice techniques. In the northern source, Yi Zhiqiu had been an outstanding genius, but it was only once she was sent to the Central Plains Divine Ice Palace that they realized she didn't just possess an ice constitution but an innate ice spirit body that had not been seen in tens of thousands of years. This kind of ice spirit body was extremely rare. In fact, it existed only in legend. It was not something that should exist. The ice spirit body could be split between innate and acquired ice spirit bodies. Acquired ice spirit bodies were created by modifying the spirit root. Through much pain and trouble, it was possible to make a person possess an ice spirit body. However, the failure rate was extremely high. So even an acquired ice spirit body was very rarely seen. As for an innate ice spirit body, it meant possessing ice energy within the fetus during the pregnancy. That was essentially impossible. After all, if something as weak as a fetus was touched with the slightest ice chi, they would simply die in the uterus. Even powerful cultivators, even if both mother and father possessed ice constitutions, it was impossible for them to give birth to an innate ice spirit body. This was something that had been confirmed through years of research and experiments. It was unknown how many babies had died because of that impossible dream. In the end, people had concluded that the innate ice spirit body could only be born by the heavens. It was impossible to make one. That was why when it was learned that Yi Zhiqiu possessed an ice spirit body, the entire Divine Ice Palace was shaken. However, the Divine Ice Palace had not widely announced it. They only revealed that they now possessed an ice spirit body while leaving out the innate part of it. Before Yi Zhiqiu, the Divine Ice Palace had already possessed 3 disciples with an ice spirit body. Adding in Yi Zhiqiu made 4, so she hadn't appeared too amazing. However, now that Yi Zhiqiu was fighting in front of others, Xie Luo's rashness had almost resulted in him losing his life. He shivered. Yi Zhiqiu's sword slashed through the air. As a result, ice crystals condensed in the sky, looking like the celestial river of stars. Xie Luo let out a shout, and a giant figure appeared in Xie Luo's manifestation. He actually threw his blade into that figure's hand. His blade rapidly grew to match that figure, and after grabbing it, that figure grew much more solid. It actually walked out of Xie Luo's manifestation and swung the giant blade. Boom! The blade sliced through the air, shattering Yi Zhiqiu's ice crystals. At the same time, it became possible to see that figure's face. It was actually a 30,000-meter blood-colored skeleton that was covered in scarlet runes. Wielding the crescent moon blade, it looked like a fiend that had crawled out of hell. Rumor is that Xie Luo possesses the evil spirit body and can summon some terrifying life forms. This giant skeleton definitely isn't something that should exist in our world, said one of the experts of the neutral camp gravely. The giant skeleton was emitting a blood-colored glow that warped the space around it, resulting in Yi Zhiqiu's ice crystals being unable to freeze it. Xie Luo was standing on the skeleton's head, directing it to attack Yi Zhiqiu. Yi Zhiqiu repeatedly slashed with her sword, unleashing ice crystals that were like giant swords, blocking the skeleton. As Yi Zhiqiu and her ice domain blocked the giant skeleton, an endless sea of branches tied down a Berserk true Immortal Jiaoqi. True Immortal Jiaoqi was roaring angrily. His Qilin halberd was blazing with divine light, and each attack shattered a mass of the branches. However, Lu Ruyan had too many of those branches, and each branch that was destroyed was replaced. True Immortal Jiaoqi was unable to charge through her blockade, causing him to become frantic. If they were competing in terms of true power, perhaps Lu Ruyan might be weaker than True Immortal Jiaoqi. But blocking him for a while was not difficult. She had absorbed a portion of the primal chaos divine elixir and finished refining it. That had caused her to transform. Life and death energy flowed through her branches, making them strong enough to crush ordinary divine items. True Immortal Jiaoqi tried several times to bypass Lu Rian but failed. Hence, he sent a secret order to other experts to go around and attack the Martial Heaven Alliance. He understood that if things continued like this, the Xian beasts would be unable to comprehend life and death energy. If that was the case, then no one should have that chance. He wanted to interrupt the Martial Heaven Alliance's disciples from comprehending it. All the other leaders were also telling their people to start an assault. If they couldn't have this opportunity to comprehend life and death, then no one else could. Attack all out. If we can't get it, we definitely won't let these idiots from the Martial Heaven Alliance get it, roared one of the Xian beasts. The experts of the coalition army began unleashing powerful attacks. They activated their divine items, launching long-range attacks at the Dragonblood warriors. The Dragonblood Legion was now facing the fierce attacks of the expert from Pill Valley, the Corrupt Path, the Ancient Races, the Ancient Family Alliance, and the Xian beasts. The Dragonblood Legion had shifted into a defensive formation, so these experts didn't need to worry about their own safety. They unleashed their strongest attacks. Close to 1,000,000 experts attacked at the same time. The light of divine items was like a starry river crashing down on the Dragonblood Legion. Cracks quickly appeared on the barrier that the Dragonblood warriors had created. They roared, unleashing their full power. It could be said that this barrier was extremely terrifying. It had gathered the power of over 12,000 Dragonblood warriors, including the power of their dragon blood, that had raised its defensive power to a shocking level. However, despite how powerful it was now facing the attacks of almost 1,000,000 divine items. The Dragonblood warriors were outnumbered by almost 100 times. Furthermore, these enemies didn't need to worry about defense. They launched their strongest offensive moves, so the barrier was starting to fail. Fuck, who cares about life and death energy? I can't understand this crap no matter what, so I'm going to kill instead. Suddenly, Bao Buping stood up with an angry howl. With the noises coming from the battle outside, there was no way he could calm himself down to meditate. He actually charged out of the barrier, attacking. The Dragonblood Legion's barrier only prevented those on the outside from getting in. It didn't stop those inside from getting out. As a result, Bao Buping charged straight out. Fucking trash, return my brother's lives. As soon as Bao Buping left, Chang Hao charged out as well. Two broadswords unleashed two giant sword images that slashed toward their enemies. The experts on the other side were in the midst of launching all-out attacks when the two of them suddenly appeared. Without any resistance, their attacks created two large openings in the coalition army. It was unknown just how many experts died in that one moment. There's us as well. The rest of the heaven-splitting battle sect's disciples charged out. They were all still filled with hatred. How could they possibly calm down and meditate? Following the example of the two of them, they also launched powerful attacks. What was unexpected though was that it wasn't just the heaven-splitting battle sect's disciples that came out. Other disciples followed them. My talent and comprehension skills are only average. I'd rather give this opportunity to my fellow brothers and sisters. I don't ask you for anything in return. All I want is for you to slaughter these despicable fellows once you're stronger. If you do, I'll be able to smile in the 9 springs. A rank 9 celestial shouted as he followed. His shout caused everyone's expressions to change. They were using their own lives to win more time for the more talented people. However, he didn't even know who those people were. He was doing this for strangers. It wasn't long before that disciple was slain by an attack from an ancient race expert. His scarlet blood turned the sky red. It also reddened the eyes of those who saw it. Damnable coalition army, I'll go all out with you. That one disciple's death was the one stone that created huge ripples. Over half the disciples inside the barrier actually charged out, their eyes completely red. Kill them all. As the large mass of experts charged out into the coalition army, The barrier that the Dragon Blood warriors had summoned was relieved of a great deal of pressure. The cracks quickly healed. Over 100,000 experts had charged out. They had tried to comprehend this life and death energy, but in the end, they were unable to enter that state. As for the other experts with greater comprehension skills, fluctuations were starting to appear around them, fluctuations of life and death energy. Those people were their fellow disciples. Of course, many of them didn't know each other before this one unforgettable battle. To win them more time to comprehend this life and death energy, they gave up on their own dreams and even their own lives, charging out with furious howls. Lingshan, who was fighting Ming, saw all of this. Her eyes reddened. She had grown up alone, struggling and fighting in this world by herself. The entire reason she had picked up this burden was because of her master. But now, she was profoundly experiencing just how noble a feeling like trust was. Long Chen had once told her that as long as she was willing to do the same for others, others would be willing to repay her. At that time, she hadn't fully understood. Now she did. When she had summoned these disciples, when she had charged out into battle, these disciples had followed her unswervingly. It wasn't for her but for the Martial Heaven Alliance. If my master could, then I can definitely do the same. I won't disappoint my master's hopes for me. Lingshan's grip on her sword suddenly tightened. Upon raising her sword, arcs of light soared into the sky. A divine mark appeared on her forehead. Her manifestation split open, and tens of thousands of swords flew out of the opening. As a result, the world rumbled as Lingshan activated a paragon art. You're igniting your blood soul? Have you gone crazy, you damn woman? The one facing Lingshan, the corrupt King Ming, was shocked and infuriated. He didn't know if she had gone insane, but she was actually igniting her blood soul. That was something completely self-destructive. What he didn't know was that Lingshan was still unable to completely control her paragon art. Her paragon art was a treasure related to the karmic luck of the entire Martial Heaven Alliance. Its power wasn't something that other paragon arts could compare to. My life belongs to the Martial Heaven Alliance. For my brothers and sisters of the Martial Heaven Alliance, I, Lingshan, am willing to bleed my last drop of blood. Ming, today, only one of us is leaving here alive. Lingshan was completely determined. Her voice resounded through the battlefield. Every disciple of the Martial Heaven Alliance heard it. Their morale surged and they crazily attacked. Millions of swords flew toward Ming. He let out a furious roar, and a black world appeared behind him. He was also using a paragon art. Their two paragon arts clashed, causing the entire battlefield to shake intensely. Astral winds tore through the air. However, a muffled sound appeared after just a moment, and the black world was submerged by the endless swords. Ming Jie's corpse was torn apart. The instant that his physical body was destroyed, an indistinct black light shot out of his body and into the ground. Don't try to use the same move twice. Suddenly, Li Qi smiled. Runes appeared on the ground, and a strange object flew out. The object instantly blew apart. Ming Jie's furious roar came from it. His substitute puppet art had actually failed because of Li Qi. He hadn't managed to switch his physical body and was now left with just his Yuan spirit. 10,000 swords sliced the void. Just at this moment, flying swords slashed down. Ming Jie let out a furious roar, and his Yuan spirit was about to detonate when suddenly a feather sliced through him. This was the blue-eye peacock's original true feather. It contained its divine might and caused his soul to shake. Meng Qi had joined in. Meng Qi had activated the blue-eye peacock's original true feather's power, suppressing Ming Jie. Perhaps if he still had a physical body, he could have managed to resist, but with just his Yuan spirit, he lost control. It felt like his soul was being torn apart. Just as his soul was suppressed, Lingshan's swords pierced through him. Her sword qi instantly turned his soul into nothingness. The corrupt king died just like that. You dare to use the same move twice in front of my boss? Definitely courting death, sneered Guoran. Last time, Ming Jie had used this technique to escape. Long Chen had pointed out the flaw in this technique, which was the moment where his physical body switched place with that puppet. As long as he was interrupted during that moment, he would be doomed. By attempting it again, he had lost his life. However, Ming Jie's power was witnessed by everyone. He was absolutely terrifying, and without that previous experience, there was no way he would have been killed. Lingshan suddenly coughed up a mouthful of blood. People were shocked to find that at some point, she had lost her left arm. Blood dyed half her body. She had managed to force Ming Jie into an all-out clash, but she had paid a price. Her aura plummeted. Not only had she used up most of her spiritual yuan, but she had also suffered a heavy injury. I pledge my life to Senior Apprentice Sister Lingshan. I pledge my life to Senior Apprentice Sister Lingshan. I pledge my life to Senior Apprentice Sister Lingshan. It was unknown who was the first to shout this, but all the Martial Heaven Alliance's disciples began to shout, their voices ringing out louder and louder, shaking the world. Long Chen smiled. Lingshan had managed to win the hearts of these young disciples. She had done very well. Lingshan had finally shown her charisma as a leader. This would bring about a powerful cohesiveness and motivation within the Martial Heaven Alliance. That kind of power would grow stronger and stronger. You seem quite confident, like everything's within your control, said Hualayun as he continued to attack Long Chen with his flame spear. Aren't you the same? We're in the same boat. You're playing a game with me, but as for the final board, it will quickly be exposed, said Long Chen indifferently. Clearly, Hualayun was the true person in charge of this battlefield. However, compared to Long Chen, he seemed slightly uneasy. Long Chen had been calm from start to end. Hence, he couldn't tell what Long Chen was thinking. Boom. Each of them forced the other back. They stared at one another. On the battlefield, the Martial Heaven Alliance's morale was soaring. Lingshan was injured, causing her power to drop, but she still joined the troops to slaughter their enemies. Hualayun smiled. Do you think the Martial Heaven Alliance can be saved? Clearly, Hualayun was referring to Lingshan. She had managed to receive Chu Jianying's burden and was now reuniting the Martial Heaven Alliance. The Martial Heaven Alliance didn't need saving in the first place. Your question is stupid. Long Chen shook his head, lazily resting Evil Moon on his shoulder. Long Chen, you might think yourself clever, but you don't even realize death has come for you. Hualayun smiled mockingly. This idiot expression of yours is quite irritating. No wonder the pill fairy doesn't like you. If you get any closer, I'll vomit. Long Chen once more shook his head. Bullshit. Hualayun was instantly provoked. His voice was so loud that it made everyone else jump. Don't be so loud. If your voice represented your power, then donkeys would have already taken control of this world. So you shouldn't play such low-level stalling tactics with me. From the very start, I could tell something was up. The person who arranged this game is not you nor those two fellows from Heavenly Fate Island. You're all listening to the moves from outside the board. It's fine, I'm not in a rush. Stalling like this is actually really nice. In any case, your Pill Valley sent out the fewest people, and the ones dying belong to other powers. You don't care how many people die from the corrupt path, the Ancient Family Alliance, the Ancient Races, or the Xian Beasts. Actually, the more of them die, the more hatred they'll feel for the Martial Heaven Alliance. Whether this battle is a misunderstanding or a trap, the seeds of hatred will already be planted. Pill Valley will still be the winner. When Long Chen's lazy voice rang out, the expressions of everyone fighting changed. The hearts of the people in the coalition army dropped. Through Long Chen's reminder, they realized that Pill Valley had really only sent Hualayun and those 12 experts of the Flame Divine Palace. There were hundreds of thousands of corpses strewn on the battlefield now, but they didn't include Pill Valley's people. Even the neutral camp's people were shocked. It seemed Long Chen had long since seen through Pill Valley's intentions. Absolute nonsense. Do you think others can't tell that you're trying to sow dissension? Shouted Hualayun. No, you misunderstand me. I'm not saying that you're an idiot, nor am I raising the question, because you are simply fundamentally an idiot, said Long Chen innocently. You dash. Ah, here come the donkey sounds again. I told you, being loud is meaningless. If Pill Valley wants to con more idiots, it has nothing to do with me. If you want to play with me, then I'll play you to death. In my eyes, none of you are innocent. If people have their own eyes and brains, they should be able to see the truth. If they don't understand things but still raise their butcher blades, they can't use the excuse that they were being used by others once things are over. Being used by others? What do they even have brains for? Innocent? What about the people they killed because of their idiocy? Are they not innocent? So to everyone who has raised their blades toward my friends of the Marshall Haven Alliance, I'll have to say I'm sorry for you. Long Chen smiled coldly. Hulian's expression changed slightly. What are you talking about? Just at this moment, the golden tide began to shudder. The golden tide's about to retreat. Startled cries rang out. The experts comprehending the golden tide began to awaken. You were stalling for time, but I was also doing the same thing. Sorry, but the time I was waiting for arrived first. I'll be going, said Long Chen with a grim smile. Xia Chen, is the formation complete? You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.